All right.
So how do we start this by being funny? Like,
how about this?
Usually you ask me something.
Have you guys heard of this chroming
Here he goes.
trend?
What is that when you spray your mouth with the paint and then you go to...
exactly
Wait,
what it is.
Wait,
okay,
what?
I thought this was like a gooning offset.
Are we allowed to say that on a podcast? Do we need to cut that or get demonetized?
Is gooning legal?
Chroming is the thing from Mad Max where it's like, witness me! And people, they're doing that, and like kids are going to hospital after they see people doing this on TikTok and they're following it.
Finally a good one. That's so much better than the Tide Pod challenge.
I was going to say, it's the modern day Tide Pod thing. Tide Pods, what was that, like 4 or 5 years ago now? How long ago was Tide Pods, for real?
20 years ago.
I feel like there was 5 years. That feels about right. So we're due for another one of those, and this is it. This is it. So chroming.
I mean, what did it even do in the movie? I didn't read the comic book. I don't remember the comic book. Like, does it make them stronger? Like, what did it do?
It just jazzes you up, man. It just feels good, I imagine, to do it.
Does
to
it?
be like, I'm about to die, so I'm gonna look fucking sick while doing it.
The Australian authority, you would know.
I was gonna say, yeah.
We know what we're doing down here.
Well, speaking of witnessing us, welcome to the Friends Per Second podcast. It's episode 53, believe it or not. We're here, we're back from Gamescom, and we're joined by Jordan Middler from VGC. Jordan, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Jake? It's lovely to see you.
I'm so good. I'm so happy that you're here. You're like one of the people I've met where like as soon as I met you, I was like locked in. I was like, this guy, I'm about this guy.
It felt like at SGF, every single thing I did, you were there, and we just caught each other like from across the room and always just made eyes, and then it was like, we're going in different directions, but we know we're together here, you know?
It's powerful.
You know those orbits are going to bring you back together.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Love a good bromance. Love to see it. Apologies to all of our RSS listeners. We do have a Scott on the podcast, but unfortunately we cannot provide you subtitles, so you're going to have to bear it. Maybe listen down at half speed. You can like play it at half speed. It should be fine. You know,
it's bold from an Australian of all people to be making claims like
Excuse
that.
me. No one says that they can't understand what we're saying. We say that all the fucking time about you people. Okay, it's a whole different ball game.
People, okay.
You
people. That's
you
right.
People.
Scots. Absolutely. We have plenty of them in Australia as well, so we know. Don't worry, we know.
Yeah, because we sent them off away. The colony that you are. Like...
Scots and Irish, right? It's basically you're just the main export to Australia. That's it, of course.
We love drinking, you know?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Well,
I mean, as a Geordie, I'm your ally, Jordan.
Yeah, but you've done the same thing that I have, where we've like weakened our accents to such a point that we're actually broadcastable. Like, when we get a drink in us, that's when the proper, the Paisley boy and the really broad Geordie accent that just appears from you. The first time someone told me you were a Geordie, I was like, they must be talking about someone else, because that can't possibly be Gamespot's Lucy James.
Yeah.
Is Geordie mean that's northern England, right? That's
Northeast, yeah.
Northeast, okay.
So we're like one of the last major cities before Scotland. So we're not too far from the border.
Oh, that's why you sound like that sometimes. Okay.
Pretty much,
yeah, got it.
All right, good. With that, let's just jump in. The first big headline is pretty crazy. This happened today, recording this podcast, right? So
a couple of hours ago, yeah.
Sony has announced that they are pulling the plug on Concord just 2 weeks after its launch. So the game is officially going to be going offline September 6th. Refunds are going to be issued. You will no longer have access to the game after the refund. And this all, of course, follows the peak Steam player count in the low hundreds. And the game just kind of being the running, gag for the last 2 weeks. And this is wild. I didn't expect an announcement like this so soon, but it was an announcement I expected. Am I wrong in that assumption?
I thought it would be a couple months rather than a couple weeks.
The thing is, they had actually not posted any. So I was writing this up on my news show this week, and I noticed that they had not posted anything on their official comms since Monday of last week, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, all right. I think we might be in the territory now where they're thinking about potentially shutting this down and issuing refunds, because you can't keep selling it if there's no one playing it because you can't get matches, right? And Sony obviously care about their brand, you know, like they do, right? They care. And so they're going to be like, well, we can't sell people this thing if it's just going to become a laughingstock that, you know, keeps going. Better to bite the bullet and whatever. So yeah, it's definitely surprising to see this outcome and see where it's gone, like how it's landed and the speed at which it's happened. But I do think that given that we didn't actually hear anything from them from Monday of last week, I'm less surprised that this announcement has happened today. So yeah.
I mean, I'm like, you did a thing at GameSpot where it was like, here are, 2 weeks is very, very short. What other games have been closed down in that quickly?
Radical Heights is the closest, I think.
No, I think Radical Heights must last much longer.
Mortal Kombat Onslaught was a month, and there was another one.
The day before.
Crucible. And
Crucible, I believe, was actually longer
it went into beta
as well.
and then just never.
Correct, and it was a beta.
Never came back, and then
The only actual parallel is the day before, which was just a straight up scam.
Yeah.
That was not a real game. That was all just bullshit and lies the entire way through. And that lasted 4 days, if I can recall correctly, before they announced that closure. So this one was at least, 2-ish weeks. But just an unbelievable result. Like, it is, I think at this point we could say, like, the biggest flop in AAA history. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't 8 years in development, though. There was a lot of reporting around, like, oh, it's 8 years. It wasn't. Jordan, because you guys clarified that, didn't you?
So when I saw that, I was very confused because PlayStation held a preview event for Concord at PlayStation Studios in London, and it seemed like they were really kind of invested in it. And that's actually when I played it and did my preview, it was kind of best possible environment to play it, and I thought this might have a chance. We were still kind of chatting in the way of this seems dead in the water, but during that process they were like, we've been doing this for Firewalk's been going on for 6 years, and then we've been intimating the game for about that time. So when the 8-year stuff started getting thrown around, it was somewhat confusing, but it seemed to just develop into this stick with which to beat them with. Now it's just like $100 million budget, 8 years in development. It was out for 2 weeks and now it's been cancelled. It's a very strange one. When this happened, about 90 seconds after the tweet went up, I got the following message: Concord dead, full refunds, as if it was like a telegram coming over the wire. I was like,
Concord,
the war is over. Germany surrenders, unconditional.
It's like, what do you mean Concord dead? Like, surely I thought they maybe meant, it's going on PlayStation Plus like now, and people are getting refunds if they bought it, but you can still play it. The fact that it's just gone is unprecedented, and getting anyone to speak on that at the moment is obviously kind of impossible, because can you imagine the mood in Firewalk at the minute? It must be complete shell shock.
Yeah. So I think there's a way to, I think first of all, like, I think it'd be interesting to talk about like what is likely going to happen with Concord in the future, and then also talk about like, well, what is this, how did we actually get here, and like what led to all this, whatever else. Maybe we should do like the forward thinking stuff in a second. We all played Concord at different points. What do you guys think led to this situation where this game bombed? Because there's obviously so many different things, but I mean, what do you think was the main reason why this had such a catastrophic launch?
Oof.
Lack of interest. It just seemed to me like lack of interest. The only people I heard ever speak of it were hyper online Twitter people or video game industry people. And I think it was just the look of it, the appeal of it just didn't seem that interesting. It's not like I don't know. It's just like the approach to character designs or something like that. People said it was like a Guardians of the Galaxy light type of thing.
Yeah.
I think it was just lack of excitement and appeal.
Yeah.
It's a very ugly game to look at, and also, even if it was this beautiful game with wonderful characters, at its best, it's probably the 7th best live service like shooter that's going on at the minute. So it would have had to been, I wrote this in the review on VGC, it would have had to have been of Titanfall 2 quality to even have a chance to dethrone the biggest games in the world, and add that to characters that no one could possibly get invested in, and the fact that it was a paid for product. It sent out to die, I think, is an unfair kind of label, but Sony obviously knew what was going to happen based on the fact that no marketing, no pre-release review code. I bet they're absolutely furious that they put all that production money into that controller, which is probably going to become a collector's piece at this point.
To be fair, it's a nice controller.
No, not just the controller. Please don't forget the secret level episode.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah.
Which secret level, by the way, if anyone doesn't know, it's an Amazon TV show where they basically make
vignettes.
Vignettes based upon video game properties. They have one dedicated to Concord. It is unclear if that will still be in that lineup, which airs in December, or if they will pull it, or who knows. I don't know.
I see it still going in it.
No, because it's given how expensive Blur Studios is, there's no way they're going to kill an episode.
I wouldn't say it's a whole episode, though, because these are just like short stories, right? So if this is just a short story, you could cut it from one of the episodes.
If that's the way that the episodes are structured, though, right?
Exactly, yeah. But I just can't see how Sony would want to handle the embarrassment of having that go to air when they've decided that this game is not coming back. That's very damaging for a brand. So I think Sony would just eat that and figure out a way to not have it air rather than suffer that. So, but I don't know. We don't know. Obviously, we're just guessing. So.
No, especially because they have, there was the Kratos and everyone
totally.
They have other representation in that is with the more, I don't know, respected brands that they own. But to Jordan's point, the big kind of elephant in the room when it comes to live service is that no one is playing new stuff. If you look at the top 10, I know this is the tweet that goes around every single time, but the top 10 is always going to be games from 5-6 years ago. It's the Fortnites, it's the CODs, it's the Grand Theft Auto Onlines, it's Dota, it's, do people even want new things anymore?
Okay, I disagree. I actually disagree with that, right? So I'm looking now at 24-hour peak for what's being played. Okay, so first of all, Banana is number 2.
Who?
Just so you know.
Still,
okay?
Oh my god.
Banana is number 2.
Meme game.
Secondly, Deadlock is the 6th most currently played game.
I will say, hang on. A new game from Valve, I feel like, is a very different situation.
Of course. All right. Sure. Then we have Once Human, which is the 9th most played game at this point in time. It's a completely brand new IP from a newish developer. I know The First Descendant is somewhere in the mix here as well, and that is also a brand new IP from Korean-based developer. And that's just that, right? So
what about on console?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have console numbers, obviously, so I can't say. But I guess I'm just kind of pushing back against this idea that it's not really possible to make new things that people want to play in the live service space. I agree, it's extremely difficult.
I've got Matt Piscatella's thing up right now, and it's the console one is all PlayStation is Fortnite, COD, GTA.
Sure.
There's nothing new in either of those, except for weirdly on Xbox, you've got the Mafia Definitive Edition.
Hell yeah. Come on.
Right. Love to see it. But, so, look, I've never... Look, obviously, it is very difficult to break into this space, but I also believe that it is possible to do so if you have the right mix of, business model and quality and idea and all that sort of stuff. It's just... I think with Concord, what's so frustrating about it is that, it's so frustrating because everyone fucking told them this would happen. We told them this would happen. Everyone told them this would happen. And it's what were they expecting when they put this out? Do you know what I mean? It seems so ridiculous that these companies would spend 4 to 6 years paying 150 people to develop a video game. And then they would reveal it at one point and then 3 months later launch it to market after 2 really quick betas. What are you doing at that point? Obviously, unless you've got fucking lightning in a bottle, there's no way that strategy is going to work. There is a lot of promise to Concord, I think, in many aspects. And if you had the right development model that released this game 3 years ago into betas with a closed community, and you built it up over time, and you took feedback on board, all that sort of shit, you could have had a game that is now ready to go into 1.0 with a good sizable community behind it, reflecting all the feedback that players have been given, etc., etc. Sony essentially tried to launch this live service game as they would a single player God of War or whatever, right? Where it's just like, no, it has to just drop. And it's like, that's not how you do this. Deadlock has been playable since last year. It's been playable like behind closed doors, and like you weren't even allowed to talk about it, but 100,000 people were playing it before Valve even announced it, right? And they're now deep in the process of, collecting feedback and whatever. It's just like this whole thing, it just seems such a waste of resources. And the way Sony are handling this live service stuff is so dumb. This is not how you can do this. The risks are too great for you to launch a game like this in this way.
It's just strange to me that this is the one that they took the punt on, because they cancelled the Last of Us multiplayer project, and I saw a bit of that, and that looked like something people would want to play far more than this. So what possible kind of equation was drawn up that it was like, we have, even if there's a 1% chance that Concord makes a bit of the money back, it's worth just putting it out, seeing what happens, rather than killing it stone dead. And I think we'll talk about it later, but it's such a weird month and a bit for this to happen, where there's this absolute failure that's kind of endemic of what Sony wants to do going forward, and then there's something like Astro, which is this absolute celebration of what people love about Sony, and it's such a strange juxtaposition. I just think that, first of all, I think this horribly impacts games like Marathon and games like Fair Game. That's apparently a game that was shown. Is it not Haven? It's like Jade Raymond's thing or something like that?
It is Jade Raymond's new studio, but was it Chris Dring today said that he heard chat that there's a very positive internal buzz about Fair Games, and I was like, is that?
I'm sorry.
I can't believe any of that shit anymore.
I don't know if that was Chris Dring. I don't want to accidentally assign that to him.
I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying, like, fuck, man.
No beef with Chris Dring. Is an angel sent from heaven. There's no beef with Chris Dring. But yeah, I think that Ralph made the great point.
It was Chris Dring.
You could have known the moment that they showed the Concord trailer and everyone was watching the kind of cutscene, and they're like, oh, is this like a new kind of single player thing? Maybe people hadn't heard of Concord. As soon as they showed the gameplay, everyone's shoulders dropped. And it's like, okay, but one of these.
But it's like there is a opportunity for this game. Like, for example, Destiny Crucible, it's pretty much dead, right? But there's a lot of people that really liked what that was doing. You've got some fantastic fundamentals in this game that could have gone the distance had you built it up over time. Like, if you'd got this feedback on the character roster earlier, and you were able to start adding some newer characters that really did sort of like, get people interested and engaged and whatever else. Like, there are just so many things, and it seems so crazy to me. And I spoke about this on my news show this week, but just like Suicide Squad, these fucking executives were like, nah, we've got $1 billion product in our hands, baby, let's go. It's like, no, you don't. Who are you listening to? Redfall, when Phil Spencer's like, oh, our internal reviews are actually much more positive than this. It's like, where are you getting any of your internal feedback from to make these decisions? Because, like, everyone is telling you the exact same thing when the game actually gets out the door. It's not like, oh, there's a really divided opinion. It's like, no, everyone tells you this is not going to happen. It's just, I don't understand how it gets to the point where these companies are spending this much money and taking this much risk when they're being so poorly advised. Like, it really does absolutely blow my mind. Are they just taking a punt because they're like, well, this is the business, like Hollywood. They're like, you make a picture and some of them work and some of them don't. But I don't know. Like, is that what they're doing? Because if that's the case, like, they're going to be ready to lose a boatload of money on so many projects.
Just to try and get in their headspace a little bit, like you had said before, like it was like a God of War where it's like a game, it drops, you pay money for it. So is it just like their thinking hasn't adjusted to this, live service model that they actually want to pursue? Because it's interesting. Like, on the one hand, it's like they are focusing on what they know they do well, where it's like, all right, characters, cinematic stuff, story, it's new IP they're investing in. But that wasn't enough because of the rest of it or the lack of it.
Do you think it's like, instead of it's like a sunk cost thing, but then they saw Helldivers and they were like, well, internal buzz wasn't so great on Helldivers either, but then it came out and it was a massive success. Maybe the same thing will happen with Concord.
But like, again, it's like internal buzz wasn't that great on Helldivers. Why not? Why not? Like, why wasn't it great? You know what I mean? Like, again, who are you listening to internally? It just, I don't know, man. I don't know what the solution is to it, but I do know that if you're going to move into these live service spaces, it cannot be this kind of like just drop it when it's done thing. You need to embrace early access. You need to embrace a model that develops your game with a community, closed beta test. You can't protect the element of surprise in this. It's not about the element of surprise. It's about like getting it right over time and just like seeding an idea and building it out, and just this cannot continue in this current form. Like it's wild.
It's so strange because Sony has been the home of like multiple live service smashes that weren't their own. Like Rocket League when it launched was a PlayStation Plus game. Fall Guys when it launched was a PlayStation Plus game. Like there is literal case studies here that they could have at least moved on. Like that Quidditch game came out today in PlayStation Plus. The fact that Concord wasn't one of those was kind of astonishing to me.
It was a very arrogant move for them not to make it like the PS Plus game as well. Like extremely arrogant, because they were just thinking, well, we can get $40 out of people. It's like, well, no, what you're trying to do here, really, that is the perfect fit for a PS Plus release. The fact that you did it was very, very, like, did it that way was very silly. So, yeah, I mean, totally wild. What do you guys think this means for, like, Sony's overall live service push? Like, so many cancelled projects and misfires and whatever else outside of Helldivers 2. Do you imagine that Sony, where do you see them going after all this?
They got to be in really deep at this point, right? I don't know. Do we know how many are actually in full production?
I remember thinking there was 12 at one point, but now it's down to like 5 or now it's down to like 5 or 6. Do you have more specific numbers, Jordan?
No, in terms of that, a few years ago when they were like, we're working on like 15 of those. Obviously, that was games that never actually came to the boil, but the stuff that I imagine Marathon makes it out in a much different form. I keep tweeting that it's never going to come out, but that's mostly tongue in cheek.
I saw you tweet that today, bugger.
In a much different form to what they probably imagined it when they were starting to think about bringing it back. That fair game, whatever it is, either doesn't come out or becomes this entirely different thing. But I think this is an argument-winning moment in Sony. There are people within Sony, clearly, that are like, we cannot just do this because we're throwing away everything that kind of built us up a player base. There's no point spending all this money on 10 failures for one potential win. And even when we win with Helldivers, the community hates us 6 months later, and it's a hashtag dead game. Like, it's such a low success rate that I think that this will change the tide, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have another massive failure out of this this like Sony play, just as Jake said, because there's so much money in it. I think it's
I agree.
It's a deeply uncertain time, and I bet you there's some conversations in Sony today being like, God, I hope Ghost of Tsushima 2 hits big, because we've got to get back on those as well.
I mean, so looking at so there's an IGN article from November last year, which was Sony commits to launch just 6 of the 12 by March 26. One of those was Last of Us. That's gone.
God rest it.
Concord, Fair Games, the Horizon multiplayer game from Guerrilla, a co-op action game from PlayStation's London studio, which I'm assuming is now
that's no longer on the
dead.
boil.
Yeah, and those are the ones that they've mentioned in that.
The Horizon one, I bet, since Herman Hulst is at the wheel, I bet the Horizon one full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead on that one, boys.
Yeah,
I would really just question. I would question that one so much. Like, I do not have faith in the Horizon IP as one that is going to pull players in. I like Horizon. I do. I like it way more than most people, in fact. But there is something about that IP that does not hit right for people and really getting them invested in it and excited about it. As I've said multiple times, it's kind of like Avatar. Like, it makes money,
and it's pretty.
It's pretty and popular, as in, like, people talk about it when it releases, but it feels like it's just ethereal. It's like when you try and grab it, it's just not there. Like, that's how that IP feels in some weird way, which is why I'm also not particularly hyped for like the Lego game that's coming out. And I feel it's a bit weird that they're making that, but whatever, that's a whole other story. But that one I would want. I'm going to be interested to see how that goes. I would say though that like this live service thing is a very existential challenge for Sony. Not in the sense that like, oh, they need to stop making live services and just focus on single player games. Because the reality is they actually need to have a few live services that they can bank on, right? Because this is what keeps these publishers afloat, especially now that Microsoft just bought up everything and has a boatload of these massive live services that just print money. You know, like the whole game has changed now. And, you know, Ubisoft, for example, would have been out of business years ago if it weren't for like Rainbow Six and the fact that, you know, they've essentially turned their Assassin's Creed games into live services, right? You need to have successful live services if you're going to operate at scale as a large publisher, and they need to find some of that success if they're going to be sustainable in the future. The way that games are made these days, their budgets, how long they take, you can't just build a publisher on Sony scale with, you know, single player games, as unfortunate as that is. And so I don't know what they do to try and turn this around.
Well, that leads to what is the future of Concord? You know, they are pulling the plug on it. They're scaling back. They didn't announce what the path is forward. They didn't do anything like that. They were just like, bye-bye. We'll see you later, maybe.
The blog post is very terse, I would say. When you read it, it's...
How long do you think they got notice that this was happening? Like, how long between decision made and this being announced?
No. I reckon the conversation was happening even before the game launched. They looked at pre-orders and they were like, buckle up.
Totally.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, so do you guys think it'll come back? Because there's two paths here. There's a path where it just doesn't... They just, you know, they retool it as a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
And they relaunch it at some point in the future. And then the other path is that they say, after careful consideration, we have decided that we cannot continue forward with Concord. Thank you, everyone, for playing.
Can that happen? Like, I don't know how this stuff works, but can that happen with how much money they have invested?
Absolutely, for sure. That's exactly what they did with Crucible. I mean, that's what they did with Anthem, but obviously Anthem still sold a boatload, but they still called it in. Yeah, they can absolutely do that. And they just and Hyenas is another example. Sega's Hyenas, where that is the most expensive game they ever developed as a publisher, and they chose to can that rather than release it because they thought the ongoing costs of maintaining it as a live service would not be worth it. So yeah.
I think it's very unlikely that it comes back, even in a free-to-play guise, because how are you supposed to message? We didn't think this was good enough for you to actually play with, to pay for, so we're just going to throw it out. The core problems with Concord, the characters, the whole kind of story, the amount of money that is required to fix, quote-unquote, that stuff, way more than Sony could possibly want to put into this thing for what is a 1 in a billion chance. I think the most you'll get is like a Concord classic where it is effectively untouched and they just put it up, but I don't think there's going to be like a Concord Next or Concord 2.0 where this is somehow salvaged, because the problems with it are like endemic to the game. They're not a quick fix.
I agree. I mean, I spent a fair amount of time playing it in those betas, and this is not just like, flick a switch, make it free to play, and off you go. Like, first of all, that switch, to build that switch is a lot. You know, it's like you need to rebuild the game's monetization and progression models and all that sort of stuff. That's a huge undertaking. But fundamentally, there are big problems with this game. Like its crew system, for example, and its variant system for its characters is so bafflingly bad. Like, what is this, you know? So to redo that is a lot. You need a whole new suite of maps because the ones that they've got now are functional but just kind of uninteresting. We've obviously spoken a lot about characters. You know, to get this really competitive, you need to spend a lot of money on it. And I think that was something else that I noticed. I felt the same way with Anthem, right? Which is that, like, Anthem's like, everyone's like, Anthem, just, you know, it's got so much potential. It's just keep it alive. It's, you know, it's really just got a few bugs and add some content. It's fine. There were some very core problems with Anthem in relation to how that game actually played, and fixing them would have been a huge undertaking. And I knew from the beginning that like BioWare just EA wouldn't have the appetite for the investment required to properly fix that game and actually get it ready to compete over the long term. And I think it's exactly the same here. So I don't think it'll be making a return. So yeah, it's a real shame.
Can any of you guys name your favorite Concord character? Rest in peace.
One-Off or Tail or Z or Daw or...
You're just making up names now? You're just making up names, aren't you?
All of these are correct.
What's the Star-Lord guy? Like Necron? Something like that?
He's called... who could possibly say? Johnny Concord. that's him. Man. He's the leader of the Concord crew. I bet there's people that were working on that Blur vignette about Concord, that when that character popped up in the trailer, they were like, who is he? What is he from? I know this Kratos guy, I know this God of War fella, but who is Jonathan Concordian over here?
Jonathan Concord is perfect. What do you guys think this means for it's almost like the LeBron question. What does this mean for Jim Ryan's legacy?
He got out when it was
give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit, man. He's like, I fucking retired, baby. I got out while it was good. No, but seriously, what do you guys think?
I think that no one outside of nerds like us will connect those dots, that it's like Jim was at Sony for a long time. He was through the peaks and the troughs. He probably saw the next 2 years and thought, no thank you. Much like another top exec at a platform holder that will probably be departing soon. Like, there's got to be a time where you go, I am going now, because sure, they'll get a win.
Who is this other executive that will be departing soon?
Come on now.
We're talking about Phil Spencer, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, right, sure, fair enough.
That is almost certainly happening. This isn't breaking news. This is people with eyes. But Jim, good friend, probably saw that in the next 2 years they'll probably get a couple of big wins. They'll get a couple of big single player. Oh, it's 95 Metacritic, amazing, sells like 4 million copies, and then they'll have all these bombs and all this money pit, and he can just go, see you later. I'll take my 30th anniversary PS5 with me and my Jim Ryan cookies. Shut down PlayStation London Studios. See you later. That's it.
Yeah.
And
just at home playing FIFA. Or whatever.
On his Xbox.
Another
his Xbox.
Gaming's second most famous Geordie, behind Lucy James. By Jim Ryan.
True.
You know, he was in like some magazine that my dad was reading up in Newcastle, and he sent me a picture and he went, "Do you know him?" Not personally.
Not really.
Jim? Yeah.
Interesting to contrast the tenures of Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan, who, you know, it doesn't seem like it's been a great era for Xbox and Sony. I mean, Xbox obviously has now, you know, obviously it's got Activision Blizzard now. It makes more money by virtue of the fact that it now owns more things. But that's what you can do when you have a lot of capital. You can deploy it to buy things that make money. And so that's kind of been their business model. But it's also been joined, like that's legacy has transpired at the same time where their console business has all but effectively died. That's harsh, but it's essentially true at this point, you know? And that's a very sad legacy to have to face into. And then obviously on, you know, the Sony side, you've got this huge push into live services that has resulted in nothing. Just a total, just other than Helldivers 2, just complete loss and misfire across the board. And so, and then you contrast both of that with like Nintendo, who, you know, they were just like, you know what? We're just going to have this little handheld calculator thing that would fucking struggle to run Snake, but we're going to just make really cool games, and we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to sell 150 million units, and we're just going to crush it. That's it. I don't know. That's, as much as it is important to have live services as a big publisher in the modern era, I think Nintendo is like the exception to that rule, where it's just like, nah, we're just going to keep doing our own thing, and it works.
But the thing is and what I think Nintendo has been incredibly consistent in being is their whole thing is to bring joy, right? That's the core guiding principle, and it feels like that is ultimately the forefront of everything that they do. And you can definitely see over the years, like PlayStation and Xbox have just definitely felt just like more slaves to the money. And that's, you know, they run multi-billion-dollar businesses. I'm not in any way naive that that's not the case, and that doesn't drive things for Nintendo too. But it's just like, you don't see Nintendo hopping on trends like Microsoft and Sony do. You know, like Nintendo feel more self-assured in the way that they operate, in the way that they greenlight projects, and even like you know, all the rumors that all these projects are done and they're just holding them. They're dancing to their own song basically, and everyone else is, I don't know,
of course, just flailing about. I mean, I think part of that, we obviously hear about that kind of long-term tenure that takes place at these companies, like in Japanese companies, and the fact that they hold on to their people and they, you know, build them up over time, and all that sort of stuff, and they have much more long-term outlooks on what in terms of what they're aiming at, and that affects their decision making. Whereas obviously, shareholder-led Western-based corporations, rapid turnover of their executives, really focused on meeting their quarterly earnings, has resulted in lots of very, very bad decisions that just seem quite ruinous. I mean, this is the thing, right? We're like, who cares if Suicide Squad fails? It's like, well, okay, sure, like, it doesn't really matter if Suicide Squad fails to us, but in a way, but at the same time, it's like, well, Rocksteady could have made something else. We could have been playing something cool. There's a whole bunch of developers who are losing their jobs this week at Rocksteady because of this sort of shit. You know what I mean? Like, there are real flow-on impacts in terms of, like, the opportunity cost. It's a bad way to frame it because it sounds really, like, businessy, but opportunity cost to us as players where we could have been playing better games than we got, or opportunity costs for employers who could have been working on stuff that they liked more and that would have serviced their CVs better in the long term because they'd be really proud of it, and it would serve as a real, like, mark of honor for them rather than this kind of like, oh, that's disappointing, I worked on that, it didn't work out, right? So it is a bummer that so much capital is being deployed towards these, like, very disappointing projects, and they seem to be so mishandled along the way. I don't know, I wonder if we'll look back on this era as a kind of lost era on the AAA space, where, like, so many misfires, so much wasted. I don't know. There's been lots of great things, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not all doom and gloom, but, like, there's been a lot that's been wasted as well. But
almost like a growing pains period where some of the industry has absolutely exploded, like mobile, the games Lucy referenced, like Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto Online, and then the other guys, essentially a lot of our bread and butter, is figuring out how they fit into that next step of gaming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's interesting talking about Sony and Concord while this same week reviews dropped for Astro Bot. I'm smiling already because I think it's a great game. I think it looks like you guys would all agree with me.
Yeah.
Jordan, you're like the GOAT now, right? Didn't you, like, platinum it or whatever? What's you freak?
We got review code for this at 9 a.m. on Friday, and at 10 p.m. on Saturday I had platinumed the game, having done nothing but play it. I think Astro is genuinely the best 3D platformer since Super Mario Galaxy, and that's not see, once you play through it and you play it all, not a controversial statement in the least. There was a moment where I was like, okay, this is like on Odyssey level now. And then once you do everything, you get all of the bots, you do the final levels, you see some of the secrets that they've actually hidden, unlike a lot of the great stuff that they're showing in advertisements for whatever reason. I was like, this is a transformative kind of, you're sitting on your parents' floor, cross-legged, looking up at the TV, like, moment in gaming, and I just think it's a bit magical. It's weird because talking about this game is difficult because the best parts are the parts where you text other people and you go, oh my god, this is in it, oh my god, they've done this homage to this PlayStation game, they've done this cameo where you're like, I'm not sure how the business worked around getting this, and you're not even really a PlayStation character, no one would associate you with PlayStation first and foremost, but whatever, it's cool. And then behind that is a rock solid platformer that doesn't need all the PlayStation stuff. This is a 5 out of 5 without any of the PlayStation
No nostalgia
stuff.
Needed.
But
it's just good.
Shoves it over the top. It's unbelievable.
I agree.
By the first boss, I was like, I like looked at my dog. I was like, that's a fucking video game right there. Like, it just felt so smooth, fun to play, compelling, engaging.
Yeah.
Also just full of life and happiness, in it.
Yeah.
It made me remember what joy is.
Yeah, exactly that. See, when you spend a career playing, like, AAA slop, and that's what a lot of this stuff is, because VGC typically just reviews the biggest games, because we've only got a couple of people, so we've got to keep on top of that stuff. I've reviewed so much crap where you get to the end of it and you're like, fine, whatever, but when you finish this, you're just like, there was almost an empty feeling after I platinumed it, because it was like, I am so desperate for more of this. I would play triple the length of this game again just to feel that dunt of, like, pure serotonin that was just over and over and over again. And I think that obviously people have evangelized about Astro's Playroom since the PS5 came out, and there was always that worry of, like, can they stretch it? And they don't just stretch it, add so many new mechanics that are sometimes only in one level, and then they go, no, it's fine, we don't want you to get bored of that, so let's never let you use it ever again. Move on to another one, move on to another one.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculously inventive and uses the DualSense so well. It genuinely makes me think, like, what are other people doing? If games can be made like this, then what? There are 65 people that work at Team Asobi. 65. The end credits of Star Wars Outlaws go on for 4 fucking years because every human being that's ever been born worked on that game.
Man.
It's
crazy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think to me it kind of joins that pantheon of like Mario Wonder last year. Which you play that, and I'm actually not that big a Mario guy. Like I like it, of course, but I've never been that guy that's all about it. But you play Mario Wonder, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck, man? It's just, where did this all come from? You know, the only time the most recent time I'd felt like that before that was actually for It Takes Two, and I think these games all have very similar DNA in the sense that they are so relentless in how much they sort of like pick up, adopt, and discard gameplay ideas in a way that feels almost like wasteful. It's like you could do so much more with this one idea that you've arrived at, but you don't. You just use it once because you've got so many other ideas that you need to move on to. And it's just, that is crazy to me how relentless that innovation is. And you know, you do see it obviously in Mario Galaxy and Sunshine, or like your classic Mario games for sure. Outside of that, and like PS2 platformers back in the day had a little bit of that, but nowhere near as much. But it just seems this generation of AAA platformers, you know, I think those three in particular really stand out for how it's almost like, I wonder if it's something to do with just our brains and how our short attention spans are these days, and we just move on to new. I don't know. Like, is it because that's what they think we want, or is it because they just have so many ideas now? Because very few of these games get made, and they're like, well, if we're going to make one of these games, we get a chance to do it, then we can combine like 10 games worth of ideas into one game because this is the only shot we're going to get. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a very, very, very special game. It's absolutely a Game of the Year contender, no question. I mean, I would not be at all surprised if this is on many people's top like Game of the Year pick lists.
Yeah, you will have to drag it off the top spot of VGC's list over my Cold Dead Body. Like, this is coming from a perspective where all year we've been like, it's Balatro, it's not even close, it's Balatro. This is the Balatro killer, which they'll put on the box. Just to your point there, Ralph, at Team Asobi, their entire philosophy is, we do these like every 2-week meetings where people can pitch like tiny levels or mechanics, and we can make them so quickly. Then we draw them out, and we just, even if it's that or if it's just grey boxed, it's such quick iterative processes that's why the game feels so varied. And there'll be an enemy that just pops up for one level, and now Andy, my boss, was at Team Asobi, and a lot of the time that's just one person on this team of 65 that was like, I've been messing about with this like sumo guy, and like he's like made of jelly, when he does the sumo stuff,
I love that dude.
Yeah, he's body moves,
his ass.
And then they're like, okay, 2 weeks later it's implemented in the game, we'll polish it up, that's it, done, move on. Whereas, can you imagine how long it takes to make an enemy in like a AAA big budget game? That's 3.5 years to get the hair right. Like, it's just.
But do you know that that story you told is exactly the same story that was taking place at Nintendo when they were doing Mario Wonder. They had exactly the same thing where people could pitch ideas from across the team, and then they would just spin them up and implement them. And so it's so funny that both of those games have that thing. I don't know what it was like over at what's It Takes Two Studio? What are they called?
Oh, Hazelight.
It escapes me. Hazelight. I don't know what it's like over at Hazelight. I wonder, it'd be great to put that question to them. Were you guys doing the same shit? Were you just having crazy meetings where you're like pitching nuts ideas and just seeing how much you can make them work? I don't know.
Yeah, who came up with when you murder that stuffed animal? And it's
oh my god, the
that was
elephant.
only one guy's idea.
I was gonna say,
I'll never forget it.
Does Astro have an elephant moment? No, I think actually, like Ralph, you said something about like our attention spans are ruined, and
yeah,
genuinely, I think part of the reason that I'm loving Astro so much, and I loved Playroom, don't get me wrong, it's like it's like every 10 seconds there is something that is just delightful, or there is every single time because there's so many hidden things in there, every single time I go off the beaten path and explore, even if there's not a bot there or a puzzle piece there, I turn around and I notice that they put coins. So you get rewarded, even if it's not a big thing, you still get rewarded on your way back. And it's just the constant like feeling of, when you go back to the crash site. And first of all, they even made the PlayStation 5 cute. Not that behemoth thing. They even made the PS5 cute. But at the crash site, you have that kind of Pikmin moment of, oh, well, if I collect enough bots, I can then lift this rock and then I'll get rewarded for something. Or then there's the gacha machine and, it's all about if I've collected enough coins that I can pay for the gacha machine and then I get little accessories for the little bots that I've already collected. And it's all just like it builds and builds and builds. And on top of that is this layer of cuteness without being saccharine sweet. It's every single time those little bots are waving at me or the way that they say, thank you, they're so cute. Yeah. And then on top of that, there's the music and the way that the levels are just... The way that the levels are designed and just move around you as you explore through them, and there's so much life in it. Like, I genuinely am not kidding when I say, like, it just brought me so much joy that has been desperately missing from my life for a very long time.
It's so true. I mean, has there been another game like that this year? That's kind of, because Nintendo has only platformers. No one else really makes platformers. Has there been another game that's just kind of like, here's a game that's going to make you really happy?
I guess some parts of Yakuza, but then at the same time, it'll balance it with, like, mad melodrama.
Of course, people getting murdered and shit. Like, that's a lot. I mean, there was obviously...
Thank goodness you're here was kind of that.
Yeah. Showing a totally different way. Yeah.
This was my partner was sitting behind me like reading while I was watching this, and she's like, "You're like bouncing, like you're like sitting in the chair going like bouncing up and down with excitement when certain cameos are happening, and when, as Lucy says, once you unlock the gacha machine, which is one of the first things you do if you're like attentive with getting the puzzle pieces, and you unlock the accessories. Initially, the characters will just stand there, but when you get the accessory, it's often like a reference to that character or like a really niche in-joke, and this game gets ridiculously niche. Like, there's some big omissions that it's weird because as soon as you say that they're an omission, it's almost a spoiler by omission because you don't want people to like, oh, they're not here. But there are some characters that you would put on a PlayStation Mount Rushmore who are not in this game, whereas there are characters from like Net Yaroze games that are in this. There are characters that people who have worked in games for 15 years have to Google. So it's just unbelievable. It's very Japan centric, like PlayStation Japan Studios, obviously, because Team Asobi is over there, but Bloodborne characters on a PS5. Here we go, finally.
Yeah, when I saw that little hunter, I was like, oh my god. I want like, not a Funko Pop, what do you call them, the Nendroids. I want a Nendroid of that. That little hunter.
It's done a very good job for me. I loved Playroom, but I still in the back of my head, like, I looked at Astro, I looked at the whole thing as like, okay, PlayStation advertisement. This isn't a character I can really connect with. But now, after spending so much time in this game, it's almost like brute force erase that from my brain. Where, like, I don't care if he is like a cynical corporate mascot, like he's basically a PlayStation 5 robot. It doesn't really matter anymore. It's that moment to moment stuff. It's the fact that the gameplay is always changing. It's the good vibes. It's like the challenge where it makes sense. It's the spectacle. That's the other thing, is like spectacle. That's another thing I'm going to go into later on with Space Marine, but it's essentially like just having stuff happen in front of you and you be like thrilled and amazed by it and be like, I can't believe this is happening on screen. This is so cool. I'm running around. That just went a really, really long way with me.
Yeah, totally.
And
very special game.
Yeah. Finally, I just think that the DualSense is a wonderful controller. I think people who are DualSense haters have like rocks in their brain.
I'm
it
physically hurts me to use it for too long.
You should get a nice DualSense Edge. It's got the little clicky buttons at the back.
I know. Genuinely. Not with that battery life. They did. PlayStation
so bad.
Send me the Astro Bot controller, and it is very, very cute. And honestly, like, Astro Bot might go a long way to helping me like the DualSense, but I will never love it.
Well, that's where we that's one of the million ways we differ. But I just think that this is like they use the DualSense so well that it retroactively makes me angry about other games who just don't fucking bother with it. Like
it's
just
but like it's also hard because, you know, like with this is the kind of game where you could just invent stuff because you have a controller that can do this, and you're like, let's just add this thing, right? Blow into the controller. Like if you had to blow into the controller while you were playing God of War Ragnarok, you're like that's kind of lame.
I would.
Like, you know what I mean? Like of course we do it, like, but like if you had, you know what I mean? Like, but here in Astro Bot it's perfect, and so I think the DualSense controller. Yeah, it does feel like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if there were more games that could use its functionality? But I think that's less of an indictment on Spider-Man not using it or whatever. It's more of an indictment on there just should be more fun games like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There should be more like, where's the kind of Mario Party but made by Sony? You know, like where's all of that
PlayStation All-Stars Battle
Royale.
Royale 2. Come on now.
Okay, all right, let's greenlight that shit. All right, take that Concord money, put it over there, and then boom. Okay, there's your
I'll
live
get
service.
Jim on the phone. We'll get that sorted.
That's
and
right, that's
one of the saddest indictments of the roster of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, 3 of the first-party Sony games characters that are on that roster do not make it into Astro Bot. So,
Oh man.
God rest them.
Oh.
Ripperino.
God.
Well, I think it's a fantastic game. I'm sure we'll probably be talking about it or referencing it in different ways in weeks to come. Any final words with it? My only final word is that I'd say yes, I recommend playing it. It's a lot of fun, and I like how Crysis, you know, would make you want to like overclock your computer and melt it. I like that Astro Bot is like, we're gonna try and break your fucking $70 controller. Like, let's just DualSense the hell out of it. Like when you use the laser cannon in Helldivers too, and you're like, this isn't definitely good for the health of the controller. Like Astro Bot is like that the whole time, and I like it.
Yeah.
Good game.
Great.
Magical.
Should we talk to the people who made the game now?
It's funny you mention that because we are now going to speak with Team Asobi. We actually have the studio director, Nicolas Doucet, on. We're very excited to have a chat with him. Sorry, Jordan, you're not going to be there. You are erased from that. But still, it's a good chat, so let's jump into that. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Check this out.
What is
My
that?
camera's not auto-focusing.
Oh, jeez.
But these are Raycons. God damn you, camera. My camera's letting me down, but you know what won't let you down? Raycons.
Yes, that's
that right?
The
There you go. Thank you
sponsor
very
of
much.
this podcast is Raycons, and they have new and improved everyday earbuds now.
They do.
Multi-point connectivity, more water resistance. They're a little nicer. They're a little more ergonomic, and now they have these cool little carrying cases you can get. You can actually sorry, not carrying case. You can actually put like a little skin on the carrying case for a little expression. So this is the concrete variant.
Oh, okay. I have like the bright yellow one because I always like leave these lying around my house, and it just makes it easier to spot them. So that's actually quite helpful. But no, the new feature that I like about the new Raycons is that they actually have active noise cancelling, which you know the last model didn't.
That's
makes
valuable.
a big difference. Put it in, just cleaner sound, and yeah, I'm a big fan of it. So they always stay in my ear as well, which is something I always say when we were talking about Raycons, because other earbuds do not. They've got a really nice design that works. Battery life is fantastic. And yeah, multi-point connectivity is quite handy because I can have it hooked up to like my iPad and my phone at the same time, and it's all good. So yeah, man, they're a good, solid product, and Raycon are always at a famously reasonable price. They're like significantly cheaper than most other audio brands on the market. So obviously check your local territory to see what the prices are. You will find that they are very competitive. Do we have a special discount code for viewers of the podcast, for users? Special
of the
user
podcast?
discount?
We absolutely
Yeah,
do.
do we?
That.
Okay.
If you head over to buyraycon.com/friends, you get 15% off with free shipping. That's right, you get 15% off plus free shipping on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/friends, buyraycon.com/friends. Thank you again to Raycon for sponsoring this episode.
Hey, Nicholas. Okay, so I mean, we're getting you right as reviews have dropped for Astro Bot, 94 on Metacritic. That is absolutely incredible. So the first question to start with is the obvious one. First of all, where were you when you found out, like when reviews hit, and how are you and the team feeling?
Well, thank you very much. So, yeah, it's amazing. Where were we? Actually, so I was at home at this very desk, and we connected online with the team. Some people were in the office, some people were in their homes. We knew the exact time, the reviews would come in, and that was amazing. Actually, that very second, suddenly, 57 reviews, came in, and we saw the numbers, and we just couldn't believe our eyes.
Did you expect them to be that? Do you expect it to be that high? Because obviously, a 94 Metacritic is huge. Like, my Twitter feed all day has just been this outpouring of love. Yeah. Like, how does it make you and the team feel? Did you expect that kind of reaction?
So we had a little survey in the team just for fun, and the survey wasn't like a personal. It was not a personal rating. It was what we believe, Metacritic might say. And so it was interesting, actually. There were some people who gave it 94, so they are winners. And generally, it was quite higher than it's been in the past for us. But I don't think really genuinely we expected. Okay, it's going to kind of cement around 94. That's amazing. That's
what was the lowest score someone guessed in that survey?
Do you really want to know?
yeah, absolutely.
In the 80s. Yeah. Okay. So it started, the survey started at 70 because, we had to be conservative, but, they were, the first rates, the first scores were in the 80s. So there was confidence that we'd made something good, but then, we didn't quite expect, I think it's going to go up to that scale.
Yeah. And since that reviews have dropped, you've obviously spoken to your team members now. How have those conversations been? Is it just everyone giving each other high fives and, hugs like the end of an 80s movie or something? What's going on?
Yeah. So we have a big party. Right now it's my morning in Japan time. It's about noon, almost noon. And tonight we have it's Friday in Japan. We have a party in the office, which is going to be just reminiscing and just high-fiving, no end.
It's nice. I mean, that's actually probably a good segue because I'd be really interested just to know about more about the studio, because I mean, some people know about you guys, some people don't. Tell us how Asobi came to be. What is the story of this studio and what led to this moment?
So there were kind of two phases, and one of them, so Team Asobi is the name of the studio, but in fact, before that, there was a Asobi team, which was a team as part of another studio, back then, Japan studio. Yeah. And that team was actually created in 2012, so a long time ago, but it was a sort of R&D team, and at the time, we were looking for gameplay interactions around, especially the PS4 controller and this PS4, the camera, there was a camera and there was the DualShock 4 with them. Yeah. Well, that was post iToy and into the PS4, so that's where the, Asobi team came to be. And then, we kind of evolved throughout the PS4 life cycle. And also we made, we switched to VR. There was that's where Astro actually, first, appeared. But the studio really, as a PlayStation studio, started in 2021 when we created, and then we kind of called it Team Asobi. We started from scratch really as a new studio. And at that time, we had just finished Astro's Playroom, and we were beginning to work on Astro Bot.
Yeah, was it a lot of the same team who worked on Astro's Playroom going into Astro Bot? And how did that help, obviously the team working together on one game and going into a more ambitious, bigger sequel?
So yeah, most of the team was there. So Astro's Playroom was about half. So the studio today is in north of 65 people, and half of these people were already working on Astro's Playroom. So yes, it helped a lot to have that common ground and an engine that we had, we could build upon. And then we added several people. So some came from within SIE. Actually, they had experience at working on The Last Guardian or games like Gravity Rush. We have some people from the Ape Escape team, so it's funny because in Astro Bot there are some apes. Yeah. So that's been very useful because some of the people who animate. So we have a lot of cameos, and Last Guardian is one of them, for example. And the guy who is actually animating Trico, the big beast, and the boy is the same guy who was animating those in a very different style back on the game, right? So he's actually our animation director. So that's really it's been really great to be gathering these people, and then more people came from outside, either from the game industry, in Japan, or from even the animation industry, working on movies like, Slam Dunk. I don't know if you guys have been kind of following this kind of animation. That was like a really, really big movie for in Japan. And so this kind of other pop culture influences have been able to kind of like help Astro Bot become like a fuller game, I think.
Yeah. So how long were you working on Astro Bot? Like this version of Astro Bot?
This version, yeah. So pretty much as soon as we finished Astro's Playroom. So when we made Astro's Playroom, we had this. There were 3 goals to the project. The first one was to be the showcase to the the DualSense and really exploit the controller to the best. Another goal, which is something we added on top, was to celebrate 25 years of PlayStation hardware. So we had all the consoles that you could collect and stuff like that. But the last goal, it was like for us as a team, we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could make a 3D platformer that could stand on its own feet without having to rely on VR, because we came from the VR space and the rule set was different. And there were some really innovative cards we could play. But the moment we remove those cards, we would be back into a much more, of course, a much wider space from an audience point of view, but also a much more competitive space, because there might not be many 3D platformers out there, but they are the big calibers of this industry, right? So for us, it was about proving ourselves that we could do that. And Astro's Playroom turned out to be like positive experience from the users' feedback were very positive. So then that gave us the final nudge, the confidence we needed to go, and spend 3.5 years, making Astro Bot.
It's amazing. I mean, so you're a team of about 60 people, and you worked for 3.5 years to make Astro Bot.
Yes.
That seems really wild to us as people like industry commentators, because we're always hearing all the time about how, the time it takes to make video games and these massive budgets and ballooning timelines and what have you. So what's your thought on that sort of broader narrative that we're seeing, and how have you been able to deliver a title of this caliber in such a short time with so few people? Like, how did you do that?
Nice, really good, really interesting discussion. And on top of that, we had to build the studio, and we had to also rebuild our engine. So the rendering engine, the visual side of it was also enhanced. So there's quite a big difference between how Astro Bot looks compared to what Astro Playroom could do. And part of it comes from the type of games we make, and part of it I think comes from the type of organization that we have. So the type of games we make, because they're very modular games, we're not tied, for example, to storyline, which is impossible to change. There are some games where if you have a problem in section of the game and you just can't chop it, because if you chop it, then the story doesn't make sense anymore, right? So you kind of like you have a dependency to and it could be to actors or something like that, right? The fact it's a modular game means that right up to the end, if we want, we can swap levels around. We can even cut content. We cut content only 6 months ago, honestly. Like there was a level that just felt like a repeat. It felt, okay, the level is finished, almost. It needs to be like, bug free. But I mean, does it really add something to the full experience? It feels like a repeat to the previous level. And by being there, it's not only not a very interesting experience, but it undermines the other one. So sometimes it's better to just give one thing that is like fully accomplished, as opposed to kind of spreading thin. And I think that leads to the other thing, is that we're not obsessed with maybe the size of the game. We don't think like it has to be 40 hours. Of course, I think there's a temptation. We're all like old timers, and I think there used to be like magazines. And when you had like the scores in a magazine, I don't know about you guys, but we had something like lifetime. How long is this game going to last, right? And that was rated in percentage. It's like, but if you think about it, I mean, the quality of a game. I mean, I'm thinking about games like Metal Gear Solid, very short game. When you actually speedrun that game, it's like 3 hours. And amazing game. Journey, 90 minutes experience. But so. I think we have to really be able to say the length should not be a means to an end. It should be the quality first. And of course, the more we can give, the better. I mean, of course, that goes without saying, but it shouldn't be a case that we absolutely have to have 30 hours, 40 hours. Because I think if we do that, I think it drives to maybe like, the stuff you were talking about, taking more time and perhaps, So I think the kind of game we make helps a lot. And then the second part I was going to say is how we make it. So we approach it in 2 weeks bursts, where every 2 weeks we create prototypes, and those prototypes are handed over to single people. So one of the things that takes time with game development is when you bring lots of people together. When you have to realize any piece of work that includes programming, art, animation, sound, and people work together, that's when it takes time, because it's just the nature of things, right? It's just like people have to mesh together, right? So the longer you can delay that process of everything coming together, the more you can get a very, very fast and rapid progression. So when we do gameplay prototyping, we hand over to one single gameplay programmer an entire mechanic. It could be a boss, it could be an enemy, it could be a power-up. And the fact that they can control everything, create their own temporary models, create their own temporary animations, their own sound effects, or they kind of grab them from whatever libraries. But being able to move by yourself alone means that first, the speed, the agility that you get of it is really great. But the other thing is also the ownership. And the ownership is kind of, carries through the whole project. And I think people are that much more invested and want to see that thing come through because they've kind of owned it from the beginning. So, of course, eventually in the project, we have to bring everybody together. But roughly speaking, over 3 years, we do 1 year of prototyping where people work kind of individually. Then they come together, we mesh it together, and then the last year is about the polishing. And this 2 weeks process is really great because we come and I'm sorry, it's kind of a long explanation, but
it's perfect. It's
fascinating.
Amazing. It's fantastic.
But the 2 weeks process is really great because we come together into the studio and we play whatever was created in the 2 weeks in the morning, and in the afternoon we really debrief about what we liked, what we didn't like, to prepare the next 2 weeks. And by doing that, we ensure that 3 years is a long time. And if you're, for example, you're a landscape artist, you might be doing trees and vegetation for 3 years. If we're not careful, people might not even know what they're doing anymore. They might, they might be thinking, okay, I'm making trees, but I'm not sure which level is going in. But by keeping this kind of tight review loop, everybody gets to see, what they're doing and the context of the work they're doing. And I think that's really important because it goes back to this motivation and this kind of like, this energy that we have to maintain over a long time. And in order to do that, knowing why you get up in the morning, no matter what you do on the game, is really, really important. So I think there's also something in the process that has worked out for us. But that works for small teams. I'm not sure how it scales up to 100, 200 people. But for now, with 60 people, it works well.
Yeah, right.
What's the deliberation process or idea process for coming up with worlds? Because, you have some crazy worlds, some worlds that reference other properties. Is it like an intense process? Or is it like we have to have a snow world, we have to have a water world? How do you guys approach that?
All right, so there's a little bit of that. There are some kind of classic kind of, platformer of, space opera kind of planets that we want to represent. But also some of them are undefined. And we drive from gameplay. So we know we have a gameplay mechanic. We know we have, like interactions, enemies. And at that point, the level as it exists is kind of gray boxed. And it might be, for example, it might be a floating island, but we're not too sure whether it's floating over lava, sky, or, endless ocean. That can be designed later. So that when it goes to the art team, that's when we can look at the balance of the game. We can say, okay, well, lava, we've done quite a bit of that. So we should not do that again. We should maybe move towards more something like sky. We're missing some sky levels. And at that point, and I was thinking about the modularity at the beginning. That's also like very modular because what's important is that level moves and feels and plays well from a gameplay point of view. Whether you do that in sky or above lava, it does change the tension of the game a little bit, but fundamentally it's the same gameplay that you experience. So having that flexibility where not everything is designed and decided from the beginning is also quite a good way to go. So that's for most of the levels, but for the hero levels, of course, that's much more design in a sense that when we do is it okay to spoil some of the
I think it's okay to spoil the levels, but maybe not the specific mechanics within the perhaps. I think that's the secret. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
So where we've seen like the Kratos level, for example, the God of War level,
Yeah.
and that one definitely we know that we want it to be snow, and we want it to have like landmarks which are like references to the game. So those ones are much more kind of like crafted, I think.
I have a weird question. So one time I saw an interview from a guy called Stephen Totillo, and he was speaking to someone who had previously worked with Nintendo. And Totillo asked this guy, like, what's it like doing that? Like, what's it like working with Nintendo? And he says, it was like seeing a color that didn't exist or that you didn't know existed, right? There was like something that is in something that just bubbles up and through that you never even could have expected. And I bring this up purely because, like, as I was playing this game, I kind of felt that thing. Like, I just felt like you guys had found some way to create a feeling that is so difficult to create. And I wondered how you would describe that feeling from your perspective. Because the word joy gets thrown around a lot. Like, it's joyful, and of course it is. But how would you describe the magic of Astro Bot? Like, what was the North Star that you were aiming for when you were thinking about what you wanted players to feel when they were playing this game?
That's really interesting. So, as you were like explaining, I was kind of thinking, okay, what is it caused by? And I think the fact that we put on everybody's personal ideas has something to do with that. I mean by that not one person can hold all the gameplay ideas, all the best gags and everything, especially the humor in the game, because since you're talking about playfulness, and when we do those reviews every 2 weeks, the end of the review is always animation and special effects. And for me, that's the popcorn moment, because up to that point, we're talking about gameplay mechanics, and we have to be very vigilant. We really kind of gauging reactivity, gameplay, then we look at levels. Are they too long? Are they too short? There's a real study there. When it comes to animation and special effects, there are no problems. It's just pure enjoyment. And the reason for that is because the people that are able to perform their art in that space are really free to bring their own humor. Not everything gets storyboarded. I mean, to some point, these animations get, we have a general idea of what we want them to do. For example, like a cameo joke has to be linked to that game. But the very small detail that go into the animation and the sound effects, these ones get added by the people doing the work, right? And I think it's the total of all these things that actually makes that invisible color come to light, I think. It's not something you can really program. It's not something, and you have to let the organic process take form. And that's when it comes down to something, it's a little bit philosophical, but I think that's when chemistry also comes in. It's a little bit like in a good couple. Sometimes you can't quite explain, but you feel good next to somebody, right? There is something that just works. And I think when you assemble people that just click together and it works, there are moments like that. And I found that in a review, especially around the visual side of things, that I was just thinking, I was not imagining that far, but these people would kind of transcend what we had talked about. And that's because, they could see something that, thanks to their specialty, they could see something that maybe others people couldn't, right? And I think it's the total of all these specialties coming together that creates the feeling you're talking about. I would suspect. I don't know if I'm making any sense. Maybe it's a little.
No. I mean, it's exactly. It's fantastic, and it's incredible to hear that perspective. And given what you and your team have created, like it's really amazing to hear what goes through your mind and what your team's mind as you're doing this. So,
Speaking about platformer as a genre, like they're so special, and obviously seeing the reaction to Astro Bot, and I feel like a lot of gamers hold characters like Crash and Spyro and Mario so close to their hearts. Why do you think there maybe aren't more of these types of games?
So I think I think these games, there might not be so many of them, but they're really, really like very iconic, games. And I think it's also like trends generally, changes. It's normal that within the generation, that there are some evolutions. I remember like in my early days in games, like racing games, arcade races. It's just all the time. It's just all the time. And then today, actually, they almost disappeared. However, racing is still fun. if done a certain way. It just happen to be maybe a bit in a kind of simulation moment now. But I think this kind of fun arcade races will probably come back in a different form. And I think with the platformer it's the same kind of thing. I think seeing the people's reaction, maybe that are older, the media, clearly there was they were craving for something of that sort, and it's an enjoyable type of game. I think also something that we take very much at heart, it's both the privilege but also the responsibility to put a game in the hands of kids for the first time. There are going to be some kids out there for whom Astro is going to be their first game, right? And I remember playing my first amazing game, and these are the kind of memories you take with you for the rest of your life. And so I think for them, and when we test Astro with the kids, or we hear like parents telling us, "Oh, I played Astro Playroom and it was my son or my daughter's first platinum." We get a lot of that, really a lot of that. Like the people who bought the PS5 for themselves, but then ended up playing Astro with their kids, as an extension, and they have so much fun. So I think the fact there aren't any platformers or many platformers around it's not proof that actually they're not enjoyable, because they are. We have those facts. It's just perhaps that we went through that trend where they kind of went away, and I think a lot of people who used to make them kind of evolved with their audience, so they kind of gained maturity. Maybe the people who used to make on the PS1, PS2 era, the Astro Bot like games are now making more realistic games. So it's up to us as a new team to come in and fill that gap, and that's how we that's also why we put Team Asobi together, very much to be that kind of all ages playful studio within the PlayStation portfolio.
I was curious about the technology of this because it runs flawlessly. It looks incredible. And it seems like sometimes you're just flexing, right? Like we know there's the times when you have all the little particles, like little objects, and you just dump a bunch of them and you can kind of like spin Astro Bot around and they everywhere, right? It feels like at this point you guys were just showing off, right? So my question is, was it actually, due to the nature of the game, like not that difficult to get it running this well, or was it like, no, actually we move mountains to make this game look and run as well as it does?
I'm glad you bring it up. So actually that feature is funny. You said like lots of objects. That feature, we call it many objects. It was like a nickname, and that was decided early on that we would spend some time to optimize physics objects in large numbers, so that we could have a lot of these moments. So we did spend some time, and it doesn't come for free, certainly not. But the reason we're doing this a lot as well is because we really want the game to feel like a toy. And especially with the haptic feedback you have from the controller, it really works together really nicely. I mean, physics are they're always fun, right? They're not fun when they take over your controls, but they're really fun when you can manipulate them and still have that very kind of precise experience, right? And that was our focus. So that's why when you go in the water, the leaves kind of move away from you, but when you spin, they kind of fly with the right gravity and stuff. And for kids, I was talking about kids, a little while ago, but it becomes, and not just kids, to be honest, for anybody, it becomes a fun play loop where you think you were just gonna interact with them for 3-5 seconds, but 5 minutes later you're still there kind of doing spinning and stuff like that. And that's something that we really care a lot about, because it's the game and the objectives is one thing, like clearing the obstacles and getting to the goal is one thing. That's one way to look at the game, but the other way to look at the game is at the sandbox. And it's not new, but it's true that maybe in recent times there's less and less of that. So it's nice to be able to kind of bring that dimension back into the game.
In terms of working with Sony's IP, what was that experience like? I mean, was there so much that you couldn't fit it into the game? Was there how was that prioritization process in terms of choosing what you would and wouldn't go with? Yeah,
so we made a big list. And when you're going to have so we knew we have about 150 slots. So you're going to have your blockbusters that are, current blockbusters. So you're going to have the Kratos and Aloy and Jin Sakai. Okay, those ones are that's a given. And then there's going to be the blockbusters that perhaps, may not be active right now, but maybe had a game recently, or maybe a couple of generations ago. So it could be from Jack and Daxter all the way to Uncharted or something like that. And these ones are, obviously pretty big ones. And then it goes into the dark stuff. And that's the fun part. It's okay, deep cuts, like you go into like the likes of Legend of Dragoon or, a PS1 kind of cuts, or even stuff that was never released outside of Japan or never released outside of North America or never released outside of what used to be PAL territory.
Sure.
So you guys and Europe, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you guys would get the Aito and SingStar, I imagine, back in... Yeah. But
Sure.
that stuff was
Absolutely.
almost, right, because it was part of SCE at the time. But
Yeah.
America and Europe and Japan would almost get none of it, right? So these references were kind of localized, but I think it was quite fun to be able to mix it up so that actually we get to introduce, certain IPs to certain places. So, for example, like in the case of Japan, we have Toro and Kuro. They're the two white and black cat from the Pocket Station. And we also have like a chef from My Cooking. It was like a PS1 game on using the DualShock controller, and that's an amazing game from the history that never left Japan, strangely. So that was really fun. And then the last category was like the third party. And if you asked me the question like 2 years ago, how many of them are we going to be able to get? I would have said, or maybe half of the ones we're wishing for will make it to the game. But in the end, it wasn't that. It was almost 100%.
Nice.
The amount of just support and love that we got from the PlayStation partners, I think they understood instantly, like, okay, we're doing a 30-year celebration. Of course, you've got to have from all the way from Ridge Racer all the way to, I don't want to spoil, but yeah.
Sure.
Could you spoil a little bit? Like, what was a big inclusion for the team that had the whole team like, oh, we're putting this in the game? What had you guys really jazzed?
Well, it depends. Everybody has a different one, and I can speak for myself. So there's so many, but you guys are more like Capcom or Sega?
Oh wait,
Both.
if
Both.
it's there was a Capcom one that was my favorite that I made from PS2 era.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Is it an animal? Is it an animal?
It is an
variety?
animal from the PS2 era.
I know that one,
Yeah.
sure.
So he's he's a god as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She.
And so and that was great because these ones are really, really great. So in my case, you remember the game Ghouls and Ghosts?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, very famous. There was an amazing PSP version for that game, and only ever came out on PSP. I was thinking, that game is not really the PlayStation history, but when you think about it, that PSP version was amazing, and then they did a recent one on PS4 as well, like a kind of like reinvention. So we spoke with Capcom, and they're like, yeah, sure, but it has to be the design of that Arthur. So we've got Arthur in there with the ghouls and everything, and the javelin and the pants, everything.
That's cool.
I
Man.
love it.
That's super cool.
All right, so with that, you did mention earlier that you had done some changes and maybe cut some things. So is there stuff on the cutting room floor? You guys have a big idea process. Are there ideas that you're looking at for maybe DLC or another game in the near future? You're already inspired. What's next?
So I think with every game that we make, we always have a bag at the end full of things that didn't make the cut for various reasons. It could be that lack of time, lack of space. Maybe it wasn't quite finalized enough. So it's hard to tell. It's impossible to tell today where these things will be reused. But what I can say is that so in Astro Bot there is at the end of every galaxy that you clear, you get to repair parts of your mothership. And these repair sections are in first person, and you kind of like use the controller to do some DIY kind of stuff to repair the mothership. Almost all of these interactions actually were prototyped originally before Astro's Playroom. But in Astro's Playroom, we had no room. It didn't make sense to bring some kind of DIY. It was a different story. We were trying to explain the inside of a PS5. So we had those in our bag for that long. And then, of course, we refactored them and we revisited them because our knowledge of DualSense has evolved quite a lot since those days. But it goes to show that actually, when you work on games like that are really gameplay-centric, individual ideas like that can really go dormant for a long time before they kind of become useful again. So I think there's a lot of stuff, which is why it's very important that we don't forget our backlog. and or archive of any idea that hasn't made the cut, because there might be a game later down the line that way it perfectly makes sense.
Awesome.
Do you think are you guys still hooked on Astro? Are you already working on a sequel, or do you have a different idea for the future?
So right now we're just like taking a holiday, but also like working on a DLC that's gonna come later this year. That's gonna have some speed runs and more like the tough challenges and but I mean getting a character off the ground is really really difficult. If you think about any IP, right? So, and we have a lot, the Astro IP is also very flexible. So I think, we'll have more, we'll continue kind of thinking about game ideas. It have to be something fresh. That's also very important for us. We don't want to be just like, doing the same thing 1.5. So, time will tell. But yeah.
Cool. So there is DLC. Had you guys announced that DLC already? That was on the way?
We've mentioned it. We talked about it through interviews like this, but we've not announced the actual content itself yet.
Okay, but you say it's going to be focused on speedrunning activities, like that.
More like the skillful play,
the sweaty stuff.
Cool.
All right. Well, Nicholas, awesome. With that, thank you. Fascinating insights. Congrats again to you and the team. Hope you enjoy your party tonight, and looking forward to chatting again soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. That was really nice. You guys are really, really nice bunch, and I look forward to listening to the final piece.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back with our first user question. So there's actually 2 ways to submit user questions now, believe it or not. The first, of course, is contact@friendspersecond.com. That is the email you can send questions to, but also we have a Substack. That's that thing that people do to read. The Substack is friendspersecond.substack.com. You can sign up. We got a fantastic newsletter there. Kind of gets you caught up on games we mentioned throughout the show that maybe you missed, or a reference or something like that. We have links for you. So check that out, and you can submit questions. This question is from Midgame, who says, afternoon, evening, or morning, guys. Love the podcast. Everything you do individually, you know the drill. Honestly, the most stacked, awesome gaming podcast in the world. Thank you. I'm not good at reading compliments, but that is very cool.
Very kind.
Thank you.
Very kind.
Jordan, that wasn't for you. Ignore that. So, Midgame continues. What would you guys say is the best palate cleanser game that you could recommend? So to expand on this, I imagine Ralph can relate to this, but recently I've felt this weird gaming void upon the conclusion of Destiny 2. The game consumed so much of my time, not just for playing, but as a social outlet too. I don't want to throw myself at another live service. I think I've had my fill of that for now. Since July, I've been playing all sorts. Chants of Sinar, Dark Souls 3, and I'll soon be priming up something else. I think I'll try Thank Goodness You're Here on Lucy's recommendation, but I wanted to know what else you guys might suggest for a palate cleanser again. Not necessarily new, anything across time. Anyway, I hope to hear this question on the pod and get that giddy, they picked me feeling. Also, in parentheses, you can say Outer Wilds, of course.
Sure, absolutely, of course. Not really a palate cleanser, though, Outer Wilds, let's be real. It's a bit much.
I have seen a bunch of people say this weekend that they've picked up Outer Wilds.
Oh, just out of the blue, really?
Yeah.
How weird, sure okay. It's just, it's Outer Wild Summer. Wait.
Well, Brat Summer is officially over.
Brat Summer is over. Outer Wild Summer has begun. So that's it.
Well, I declare Astro Bot Autumn.
Yeah, that's accurate. That's fair. I mean, that's probably a good example. Like, I don't know, Astro Bot is such a great... We just talked about it so much, but I can't imagine a better palate cleanser than Astro Bot if you've got a PS5. Like, it is just joy for all the reasons that we won't rehash now. But yeah, I mean, that would be absolutely perfect. Like, it just, if you've got a PS5, man, make sure you get Astro Bot.
People get caught in the weeds too. I think some people don't realize, like, especially like seeing comments and stuff. Some people will comment and be like, why would I play this game? It's like for kids. It's like a baby game. I think some people lose that feeling after a while where you're so caught up chasing the next AAA thing or you're grinding in fucking Rainbow Six Siege for like 2 years that when you come out of that hole, you're not even like those games fell off your radar. So I do think, something like an Astro Bot, really, really good palate cleanser. For me, absolutely. It's always just replaying something old. For me, a palate cleanser is really just any dumb PS3, 360 era bombastic action adventure silliness. So like, I don't know, Binary Domain or Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. They're things that you can download on Game Pass or whatever, complete in a reasonable amount of time and then move on. You guys, you want to see what I got? Hang on.
Go on. Show us.
Better be something good. It's better be.
It looks like it's pretty special.
Is this the fucking candle for Beauty and the Beast?
What is this?
Sorry.
How sick is that? It's like a real one made out of brass.
Oh my god.
I thought it was something you got sent from some game. You're like, it's from Lies of P or something, and I'm like, it's really just a candle.
Lumiere over here.
Yeah, I went to an antique store and I got it.
It's
so
nice.
cool.
I've got something similar. I have this shit statue that Blizzard sent me for the World of Warcraft War Within. This is how good it is. It falls apart if you even fucking look at it.
Excellent.
So, thanks,
I
Blizzard.
got this one. Wait, I got this one. I can show
I
you.
got physical Balatro.
Here we go.
I also got physical.
Yeah, I gave Lucy the other one. Oh, wow, that's nice.
Mesmer.
Looks good.
Which I'm
I
actually
like the Mesmer.
it was extraordinarily overpriced and stupid. Fuck you, Bandai, but I couldn't help myself, so I bought it. And it's very nice.
I just raced to the website, the Focus website for the Space Marine Collector's Edition statue.
Oh, did you?
They're sold out. They're sold
shit.
out. But I was like playing
Look
the
at
game. I was
you.
like, I need this. I fucking love it. I am so all in. I gotta save it for the podcast. But
All right. We'll do it. Well, I reckon we should just include this in the podcast anyway. I think this is fine. So I reckon we're back.
Are we back?
We're
Are we
back.
back? I think we should bring it
back.
back from there. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Showing off our collectibles and our candlesticks. I
I was
think it's
gonna
nice.
say, wait, I've got peas.
Beans.
Not quite beans,
quite
not quite
peas.
peas.
God, I want one of those so bad.
Well, it's a non-alcoholic beer from PAX, so I don't know. It's not actual peas.
It could have nothing in it, and I would love it.
But I'm intrigued.
Get that IPA out of here. Non-alcoholic IPA out of here. That's gross.
Anyway, before my vet called,
Yes.
that's $700 down the drain there, by
Fantastic.
Man.
what were we talking
Peanut.
about?
We're talking
palette
about
cleansers.
Palette
palette
cleansing
cleansers.
games.
Yes.
Power Wash Sim.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Damn,
good
that's a
call.
good one.
Especially if you are coming off Destiny, and if you have a group of friends that you play Destiny with, you can do the big Power Wash things.
It's like a chat room game. Like you're just
Yeah.
watching, but
Very
you're
chill.
having a chat.
It is.
Have a
It is.
chat.
Just on Jake's recommendation, in the same vein, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. A wonderful
Oh.
game any time of the year to go
Yeah,
back
now we're
to.
talking.
Currently on sale. I don't get paid by Konami. Interestingly, there is 6 times as many people currently playing Revengeance as there is playing Concord. But Revengeance, a lovely one. On the same kind of like quite hyper scale, I play a lot of Neon White between reviews because it's like, let me
Nice.
just get my brain into this high score chasing fast ass action game. Maybe because it looks like the kind of game that would be under a video clip on a TikTok. It's like, yeah, this is great.
Oh my
This is so
God.
disconnected from reality. But a lot of games like that are thinking about palette cleansers in the literal sense of like, okay, I need to get myself out of this genre and prepare to review this other game, which suggests that reviewing games is kind of more of a difficult prospect than it actually is. But Neon White's a nice one, and Vampire Survivors now on PlayStation. I just bought it for like the 4th time. Great game.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look, he said no live services, but I'm going to say one that is a live service. Diablo is actually one of my go-tos. It has been forever.
I've noticed that. You keep going
Yeah,
back
you
to that
keep popping up on Steam.
consistently.
Yeah, I just
playing
grew up with
Diablo.
that shit, and so it just got its hooks into me. I just love ARPGs, and you don't have to play it as a live service, by the way. Like, you don't have to do all this shit. You can just play some Diablo, right? And you can just click on demons, and it's perfect because when I'm really ready to disconnect from my life, it is the perfect game for that because it requires so little attention. Like Destiny, you still need to be, generally speaking, paying attention to what's going on, but with Diablo, you really don't, man. You can just sit there, put someone on your second monitor, just go, and so I really had a good time smashing out the most recent season. It is a really great one to return back to. One that I've always wanted to return back to, though, is actually Deep Rock Galactic. And I think one of the benefits of that game is that you get to choose how high the stakes are, right? So you can set the really low difficulty and just do the exploration, dig some holes, like whatever. Or you could go full sweat mode and hard mode difficulty, whatever. But just a really brilliant game to sort of sink into and, choose your own adventure, and brilliantly made and just wholesome and good, and it's a really good one. If you haven't checked out Deep Rock, it's top tier for sure.
My only other one, and I said that other stuff to not sound like a broken record, like I'm so predictable, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Sure, of course.
That's it.
Did you see that they updated?
They changed it for the anniversary. What's that about? What's going on there?
Nothing is going on, man.
Nothing is.
Absolutely nothing is going on.
I was thinking, I'm gonna put it out here in the universe now. It's never so I don't want to be a host. I don't want to no offense, Lucy or anybody, I don't want to host a panel. I don't want to do anything like that. I don't want to be an esports commentator, but I would do that. I would be an esports commentator just for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Hell yeah.
I want to put that out in the universe.
Yeah.
It's never going to become a competitive scene at this point, but I would be there day one.
It'd be a sick scene though. You can imagine it'd be pretty wholesome.
It's been on awesome. It's been on GDQ.
Mm.
You should see if there's going to be the couch opportunity at GDQ for it.
Yeah.
It's probably the closest thing you'll get to
it. That's interesting. I would definitely do that.
But
we're out there.
Yeah.
We're there. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your question. That was from Midgame, friendspersecond.substack.com. Also, questions@friendspersecond.com. Thank you, users, for sending your questions. What? Did I say the email wrong?
Yeah.
What did I say?
He said questions at Friends.
I was getting confident. I was in a groove.
It's been 3.5 years, just FYI.
Yeah. Has it been 3.5 years?
Is it 3.5 years or 2.5 years? Is this the third year we're running? No, we're in episode 53, so it's 2.5 years.
I was going to say, if we done 53 episodes in 3.5 years,
Yeah, that's right.
Contact at friendspersecond.com.
There we go.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Next up, I do want to jump into what we have been playing. We've got a big, long list of games we've been playing. Lucy, I do kind of want to dive in with you. I don't know if this was a PAX thing because you went to PAX West, but tell me about Tactical Breach Wizards, because that just is a good title.
Yeah, so Tactical Breach Wizards is the newest game from Tom Francis, who made Gunpoint and Heat Signature, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a breaching tactical game where you play as wizards.
XCOM with wizards, basically. Picture
XCOM up, and do you stack up at a door and then breach?
Yes.
Okay.
But you are wizards, and so you have different powers. And one of my favorite things about this game is there's weirdly a lot of emphasis on shoving people out of windows. It's like an instant KO if you shove someone out of a window.
This is actually kind of a lot like what do you call it? Midnight Suns had a big focus on just repositioning foes. So that actually
push them
makes
off the building. Yeah.
And so I haven't managed to get as much time in it as I would have liked to, but I have played a couple hours here and there over because I went from Gamescom back home to straight to PAX, and I was playing a lot of another game that I will also talk about. But so I wasn't expecting to jive with it as much as I am. And I will say that I haven't played as much as I would have liked. But it's very funny. It kind of eases you into the tactics. It's not one of the things I was kind of not nervous about, but that kind of can be a bit off-putting for me is that if it's too tactical and it requires way, way, way too much forethought, I think it does a really nice job of introducing you to all the systems, introducing you into all the ways that you can eventually throw people out windows and knock out these police officers. But it also it's very forgiving when it comes to one of the characters that you have has foresight, so you can see I think 1 or 2 turns ahead, and so you can also reset things pretty easily. And it's also it's a pretty forgiving, at least for me at this point in my life. But I'm really enjoying it. It's just it's funny. It's got good vibes. You just, I will never not be excited when you you do that breach moment, because you can also redeploy and so attack from 2 different sides. I'm probably done a really terrible job of explaining what this game is, but it really all is in the name. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's also
Breach Wizards.
I'm very cognizant because I listened to the Besties episode on it last week, and in my head I was like, first of all, God, I wish I was as eloquent as any of them. But also, it's I just don't want to be repeating what the besties are saying because I agree with every single thing that they said. No, it's just one of those games where I was playing it on my Roger Ally. I had 4 in a bed, which is a TV show in the UK, Nothing Nefarious.
Right. I was gonna say, goodness
in the
me.
fucking
Okay.
bed. Now we're talking.
Jordan, that's when I text you about it because one of the complaints was someone had done a massive jobby and left it in the toilet.
A massive jobby.
Yeah.
We have a real great back and forth text thread of terrible British programs.
Right.
There'll be no context. It would just be a screenshot of like a TV that's way too far in the distance because I'm on some trip watching Nothing to Declare Australia and Lucy's on the other side of the planet watching this kind of shite. It's a real encapsulation.
Nothing
of
to
our friendship.
Declare Australia is not something I've ever heard of, but I can immediately picture what it is.
Look, because you can't take anything into your country, right?
Yeah, you can't take any. Yeah, you're like, if you have a fucking toothpaste that the cap is open, they're like, go to jail. Like, seriously.
And it's people turning up with like caskets full of fruit, being like, "What do you mean I can't import all of this stuff from China? Like, don't be so woke. Come on now." And the guy's just being like, not sure about that. That's about it. Obviously in America you'd get shot in the head, but in Australia they're just like, probably not. Probably not.
Get kicked out.
No, I'd seen Tactical Breach Wizards a while ago. We covered it on the show actually and put this on your radar. And a lot of positive buzz, but it's been really great to see how much it's actually cut through because it's not the kind of game that you would expect to see much chatter about, right? It's because every week I cover indie titles that look fantastic, but then, no one talks about them. They just kind of go on Steam and then they get like 300 reviews and that's about it, right? But this one really seems like the zeitgeist picked it up, and you saw it on Reddit, you saw it on Twitter, you saw it a bunch of places. There's more than a few reviews on Steam indicating that people actually bought it. It seems to have done well for itself. I don't know if it broke even or not, but I'd like to think that it did. Like to think that it's been successful for the studio, and that's always great to see. So yeah,
I really hope so. It's been a really fun time, and I think maybe just because the other game I've been playing has been very much like brain switch off. It was nice to have something that scratched the kind of the tactical urge a little bit. And like I said, I think I would be so set, like, because it's so well written too. It's just like I don't know. I don't think about XCOM and think, oh man, like the writing in XCOM or whatever, like whatever the I don't think about that. I think of just like those moments. I think of the near misses in XCOM, right? Or I think of like, oh my god, my turns are running out and I got to get this thing done. With Tactical Breach Wizards, it's like this ultimate like all-in-one package where it feels like everything has been really thought through, and it's a good time. I really recommend it.
Nice.
If you think about it, the Immortals of Avium are like the original Tactical Breach Wizards.
Nope, they really weren't at all.
I was sitting on that the entire time.
Not in the slightest bit.
Okay, well,
I liked it.
I played a cool game, smaller game called Squirrel with a Gun. You remember that game that went viral like a year ago?
Is it because it has a gun in it, Jake? Is that why you're like, oh, it's all in the title, baby, I'm in?
You got me.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a good bit of comedy, and it is exactly what it looks like. If you saw that original little trailer that went viral a few years ago, if you've seen something more recently, it's a very simple, straightforward game. It's clearly made by a very small team. It's pretty rough around the edges, but you run around as a squirrel holding a full-size weapon.
Yeah.
And you are in essentially little worlds. They break out. You unlock sections as you progress further, but essentially, it's kind of like a Mario where you're collecting stars or moons, but here it's acorns. So you're in an area like you drop in like one of the first areas, for example. It's a neighborhood. So you have to figure out how to navigate around, how to like trigger something to fall down to then let you jump up and get on top of a house to get 1 star, or find a little hidden secret basement and get another star. And in between that, you can just like point a gun at people and shoot them. They are enemies. Like there are like these like random secret agent guys.
Like, Agent Smith kind of guys, right?
Yeah, and you can shoot them. You can do like little finishing moves for them, but collecting the acorns and the progression is essentially built around collecting these acorns and then unlocking more weapons and getting further into the game. It's only a couple of hours, but yeah, as you go on, you go into like Cowboy Town, and then you can get like a sawed-off shotgun or like a revolver. and then you can get a grenade launcher. So it's kind of fun to progress to unlock these little things. There's a couple of vehicles, and then there's a couple of cool sequences. There's like you get on a little go-kart. There's a whole go-kart sequence that's pretty fun. There's a boat sequence, and there's like a boss battle or two, and they're pretty like over the top and chaotic. You fight a tank, you fight a helicopter, and it's just a good bit of fun. It was a couple of bucks on Steam, so I just bought it. And yeah, if you thought the concept was kind of funny, it is kind of funny. I don't think it's more than lasting a couple of hours, but like you can jump up in the air and then fire the gun as like a double jump. Like he'll shoot the gun downwards and he'll just like fly up in the air. So it's stupid, but it was a good little bit of fun. Maybe even a palate cleanser game like we discussed earlier.
Yeah. I have just seen clips of it. I look, I don't have time to play it. Like, it's just no space in my life.
I don't know how I carved out time.
Yeah, it's very funny that you made time for it, given the nature
between
of the
Star
title,
Wars
like,
Outlaws and Space Marine shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just do this.
I gotta play
and
this.
we're back with another episode of Before You Buy about Squirrel with a gun.
Almost did one. We almost did one.
Did you
and then
really?
I was like, there's not enough. There's not
could
enough
pop
here.
off. It actually has the potential to pop off, I reckon. If you
I
did
had to
it,
prioritize.
it might do numbers. It might do numbers.
Think of the thumbnail. It's a squirrel with a gun.
But the two hands actually just have two firearms. That's
actually pretty sick. That's cool.
So,
okay.
yeah.
I want to hear what you thought about, because I didn't watch your video yet, so I don't know how you really feel about Star Wars Outlaws, Ralph.
Yes.
Ooh, I haven't started playing it yet, so I'm very interested to hear from, because Jordan, you've played it as well. You
reviewed it in the bin.
Hell yeah. Okay.
In the bin. Oh no.
Well, okay. Look. It's a really interesting one to talk about, and I think we could talk about it for hours, so we probably have to keep the conversation short-ish. But, like, if you've heard it sucks, that's true. If you've heard it's actually surprisingly good, that's true. Like, it really is, it just cuts six one way, half dozen the other, depending on, you know, what hits for you, which gameplay foible you get caught up on, which heartfelt moment actually manages to tug at your heartstrings, which graphical glitch you encounter, which stealth mission pisses you off. Like, there's just so many tripwires in this game that you could stumble over and that's it. You're like, nope, I'm fucking done. I'm out, right? But, you know, if you're able to kind of like carefully dance over all of them, you know, there's actually a surprisingly interesting Ubisoft game there that is remixing its open world formula in ways that is novel and worth paying attention to. And I do think there is the world design that they've got is remarkable. Like, it's so beautiful to be in these spaces, and Star Wars honestly has never looked this good, except for like the Battlefront games from DICE. And I think Kay as a character and the story that is told, particularly in the back end of the game, it's good. Like, Kay is actually surprisingly great. And I really, at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I don't know about this. But then by the end, I was like, you know what? I hope there's more Kay in the future, because I'm into what she's doing. I'm into the whole setup. It's just, I was into it. So that's, for me personally, it's a very interesting game because of how much it gets right and wrong. I'm ultimately glad I played it, but I didn't end up recommending it because I'm just like, look, man, I can't. There's just too many problems here for me to really like to flat out recommend this. So, Jordan, you finished it. What do you think, man?
Yeah, so I think it sets its stall out really interestingly in the way that it kind of tricks you into thinking that this will actually be something like not revolutionary, but certainly for Ubisoft pretty revolutionary. Is well done. Speaking specifically about this whole syndicate system that is the kind of overarching mechanical kind of framework where each of the different syndicates, so the Hutts, the Pikes, the Ashiga clan, you have reputations with each of them. You can allegedly play them off each other, and depending on your reputation with those factions, it implies that there will be huge ramifications for your journey. The fact is, there are none. The ramifications for your journey, depending on who you are tight with, are essentially cosmetic. And not only that, due to them clearly being aware that some people will be annoyed at the fact that you couldn't get everything, you can buy your way into being in good graces with all of the clans incredibly cheaply. There's a really funny image going about on Twitter where this person has excellent reputation with every single clan, despite several of them being like, we are blood enemies. If you're affiliated with them, we will shoot you on sight. But don't worry, Kay is the negotiator of the century, where she's just friends with everyone. There is a really ham-fisted moment towards the end of the game that they clearly thought, oh god, we kind of need to do something that references who you are best friends with.
I got that too. Yeah,
and it's very much Kay just being like, thanks guys, thanks for doing that thing, guys, because they didn't record several different cutscenes with all the different people that it could be. It's so mechanical. Once you see that, it all kind of falls apart. I agree that I think it looks brilliant. It's a bit dodgy on PS5, like it ran pretty terribly. But there is a 40 FPS mode if you have like a fancy TV. I like Kay and Nyx a lot. Nyx is ridiculously cute. I have a real soft spot for the Nyxes of this world, the BD ones, the Grogus, all those kind of like designed in a factory to print money kind of stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, the game part pretty much fell apart from me once I got past the part that they showed us in previews. I think it's a game that actually previewed better than I expected. But once you get further out, I thought the open worlds weren't great, apart from Tatooine. But is Tatooine just a good open world because it's Star Wars porn, or is it actually a fun space to explore? That's where I couldn't quite square how I felt about that.
That's the thing I was going to ask, is that how much of your enjoyment of this game hinged on the use of the Star Wars license?
Oh, quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
I would say quite a bit. Yeah.
The best moments for me were those kind of Star Wars bits, and also some of the best writing is in these data pads that are everywhere.
Yeah.
There's one in the Mos Eisley Cantina that very comically explains why it's a different bartender than the one that's in A New Hope. Like, stuff like that. Great. Really nerdy, really fun. But, the stealth is... It reminded me a bit of those Deus Ex games from the last gen, and not just because every stealth puzzle is find this human-shaped vent and go through that, and that's it. But it's like super basic. The enemies will turn around and look at you and go, no one there. Pavess has this iconic creature that in the lore is incredibly rare, but when stormtroopers see it, they don't go, that's that creature that we've all been told about. They just go, oh my god, what is that? What could possibly have gone on here? It's just silly. It's silly and it's kind of average, and I can't square some of the mega scores. I can square people being into it, but the super high scores I don't understand.
Yeah.
Do you think it has the same momentum as Jedi Fallen Order into Survivor?
I think that there could be a world where they get a survivor out of this if they actually cash in on the ideas from the first one. But I think Fallen Order is a better first game than this is in a theoretical two-parter.
Yeah, I wonder how, because I mean the amount of money they would have spent to make this, like, so Massive has two teams, right? They had the team that delivered Avatar and they had the team that delivered this. One of those teams is going to be working on the next Division game right now, right? But that I don't know, like they can't be going into full production on that right now. Like I can't see that, right? I honestly don't know, but it doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know what Massive is really working on at this point exactly, but I would like to imagine that they might be thinking about making a sequel, because to invest this amount of money in this game, build this number of assets, right? This is the kind of thing where you want to have another bite of the cherry to make sure you get your money's worth out of all of that initial work, right? Plus, I do think they've built some great characters in K and in ND5, right? The robot companion she's got. He's like a commando droid or some shit. I don't know what they call it, whatever. There's some real potential to go forward with this, both in storytelling and commercially. I just wonder how much of a bite Disney take out of this, and whether it becomes, if it's still worth it for Ubisoft to go down this path. Because I can't imagine this sold a boatload. I saw a headline today that was suggesting that it was a bit soft. I don't know if that's true or not in terms of sales. But I just think, given how mixed the reception was, and also how burned out people are on Star Wars right now after all the shit the franchise has gone through, I can't imagine this sold big numbers. So, I don't know. I would like to see a sequel, but I just wonder if it's actually going to happen or not.
I don't know, man. I went into it trying to be like, oh, I want to go into this like any Star Wars fan and not like a cynical gamer person, but I still I had a good time with it, but there's definitely a lot of flaws where it's hard for me to recommend.
Absolutely.
And I can't, yeah, it's okay, but like right now, okay is not good enough with all the other games out there, but also like how much the game costs if you just go and buy it right now. So yeah, I think it really was for me. Like at least it made good on what I was excited to see, which was like Massive's imprint on Star Wars. The design of the worlds I really liked. I really liked the faction strongholds and how they were kind of tucked into the cities.
Yeah.
And how depending on your standing, it was like, are you walking in? Are you sneaking in? And like, how do you figure out that back door? And how I just thought that stuff was really interesting. And it was really cool to see that, like, built. Like, I'm like, this is really cool that they figured this out. But yeah, I ultimately kind of ended up feeling not as much as I wanted to out of it, just in terms of like Star Wars feeling, fun feeling. Like I wanted to turn off my brain and just Star Wars game. I love Star Wars. Like I am like cringy about Star Wars, but it just didn't quite do it for me.
Yeah, I think, I totally agree with all that. I think there's a number of problems. Number one, the core gameplay sucks. Like it's bad. It's just bad gameplay, man. I'm so surprised given Ubisoft's history as a publisher that makes stealth games, and also as Ubisoft Massive, who make the Division 1 and 2, and this is a cover-based shooter that just feels so unbelievably bare bones. It's like, where is all that capability that you deployed to make those games? Where is that now? I don't know. Like, it's wild to me.
You know what drives me insane? Picking up the
oh
the
my
better
God,
weapons.
don't even
They
start.
feel so good. They feel so good to use. The feedback, the way they fire, everything is incredible. And the game uses every excuse for you to immediately drop them. It almost feels like the game's at odds with wanting you to be a civilian kind of goofball Han Solo character and not be like a mass murderer, like, Ludo narrative dissonance type thing. But like the Stormtrooper standard issue is like so fun to use. All these things you pick up, like you could see what else there could have been.
Absolutely. Like, there would have been a way to keep her grounded and not like a one-person army while still like giving her some more kit that she could use. It was more interesting than just her shitty blaster over and over again, So, but there's also like the game really does pick up the back end. I'm not sure how you felt about this, Jordan. But like I really felt as though the narrative conclusion, when the game starts, when the crew is assembled, the story picks up again, because the story essentially stops while you go to these different planets and have to assemble your crew. Yeah. And it picks up again in the last like third or whatever. And at that point, you're like, all right, you're telling a story now. There are surprises and twists and turns and some really cool mission design. And one of the locations at the end is actually fantastic. There's just so many things that I really loved about that back end that I think most people won't see, because they'll tap out on what feels like a pretty dry game with some shitty gameplay in that first like 15 or so hours. You know what I mean? Like it's a real shame.
Yeah, the ending was strange to me because it gives you a warning about you're about to go into the end game, and I thought, okay, this is maybe like half an hour, but it's like a 2.5 hour long mission that just like combines a lot of different things, and I wasn't super sold on the conclusion. It does a bit of the Disney Star Wars of dangling things in front of you to be like, I remember, which I'm conflicted on, because when the moment happened, and it's in I should say the pre-rendered cutscenes in this look unbelievable. Those look genuinely fantastic. And there's one of those for this big moment, and I was like, I feel like I'm being nostalgia baited against my will. It's like, I'm finding this cool, but I don't want to be finding this cool kind of thing. But yeah, I think that, do you think this would be a better game if they just stripped all the open world shite out and made it like an Uncharted kind of string all the single player stuff?
I definitely don't, but I think it'd be a much better game if they had made you go to certain planets in certain orders so they could tell the exact story they wanted and build that out over time. Because it just, two of the 3 planets, it feels like there's almost no story, and the characters that you recruit are just total nuff, like just so forgettable. That actually is a pretty good Star Wars name.
Glove Shitto and
But so I think that Ubisoft's approach to storytelling really cost the story a lot there, and because if you had some of the moments you got in the back end, if you had those in the first third of the game, that might have been enough to me go, oh, I want to keep going. I want to see where this goes, The open world stuff, no, I think that's still to its strength, and I did find exploring those worlds fairly interesting in its own way. Like, it wasn't my favorite because obviously you're comparing it to stuff like Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild and Outer Wilds and whatever. Like, there's games that really nail their open world exploration, but I still enjoyed enough of this that I was like, yeah, okay, cool, you know.
The speeder is fucking garbage though.
Oh my god, it is the worst thing ever. Oh, it's so painful to drive.
It's good in a straightaway.
You can't shoot. You can't shoot your gun while you're on the speeder unless you're
Interesting
into the
choice.
Deadeye mode.
What were they thinking? It's just, yeah.
But then they did so many great things, like the representation, in my opinion, for like there's so many Zabraks in that game that like you've never seen one. I mean, what does this game take place between, right? New Hope and Empire.
Jedi.
Yeah. Oh, Empire and Jedi. That's right. Yeah. There's no Zabraks running around. Now all of a sudden there's a million Thorians. There's like a bunch. There's usually only one at a bar, but there's like so many here. So it's like, that's the stuff they had. That's the sauce. And then it's just the fact that like your speeder like gets stuck on like an invisible rock and you're awkwardly stuck while your wanted level is going up and you're getting like gunned down by like the police. It's messy. It's messy.
It's a real shame. I think that look, at the end of the day, like if you gave this game 6 more months of development time, I think you could have tightened up some of that stuff. Like the speeder would handle better, and you might have been able to arrive at some more interesting flourishes for combat. But I think you'd still have the same game 6 months from now that you would now, ultimately, right? So Ubisoft shipped it when it was ready because it feels largely ready. You know, it's not like rushed out the door.
It was meant to be May, right? Like it delayed a little.
Did it get a delay? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was meant to be sort of like spring. I
Okay.
think.
Yeah. But, you know, it is just, they scoped it, they did what they could, they made a game, and it's made, it's out the door. I'm interested to see what the future of the franchise is like. I would like to see another one. I think Ubisoft Massive could do a better job of it the second time around, but I think there's some big risks associated with that. However, far less risk than this initial offering, because you would have already done a lot of that work in terms of building the assets for this world and laying down some of the gameplay foundations. And I don't know. I hope they have another crack, but we'll see, I guess. We'll see.
Yeah. Next time around, less open worldness and more of like the adventuring. When I was just doing a real Star Wars adventure, even the climbing and the simple stuff. But when I was exploring like an abandoned ship, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. Also, the music's really good.
Oh, absolutely.
The music's incredible. How they took some of the motifs and like kept it familiar, but like built on it a little bit. That's like what I want from new Star Wars. Like take that music, take John Williams' work and spin off of it, you know? And I thought they did a really good job with that.
Really nailed it. I agree.
Tangent over. Star Wars tangents over. I'm always good for one of those. But all right. Next up, I do want to hear about Fields of Mystria. This is the game was this the game you were playing? Because you were saying that
the reason I didn't play
as
much Tactical Breach Wizards as I wanted to is because instead I've put 35 hours into Fields of Mystria. It's the best early access game I've ever played. It feels it's unbelievable. Like, so first of all, Fields of Mystria is a farming relationship sim akin to Harvest Moon. Stardew Valley is obviously going to be the most obvious comparison.
Yeah, that's what I see immediately.
But instead of you inheriting your granddad's farm as you do in Stardew Valley, you are an adventurer and you end up in this place called Mystria that's been ruined by an earthquake, and you are helping the people rebuild. And the way you do that, you get a plot of land. You start eventually, you know, my cats are going absolutely insane. You start by clearing the land. You start growing crops. You start going in the mines, and eventually you start contributing to bigger projects like improving the general store or repairing a bridge so that the market can happen in town on Saturdays. And it takes that Stardew formula. I'm going to keep comparing it to Stardew because that's what I'm the most familiar with, but it improves it. There are so many quality of life updates that I vastly prefer it to Stardew. I think number one would be the fact that the people in the town are actually interesting. I would always skip over the relationship stuff in Stardew because I just didn't give a shit. But in Fields of Mystria, there's like this one guy who loves puns. There is the there are the two brothers who work at the forge, and one of them is this like gym head who's like really like this really adorable guy who's like so happy-go-lucky and he loves working out. And so if you give him like an egg, he goes, "Oh my god, thank you so much. I'm gonna put this into like proteining." And meanwhile, he's got his brother who's like really miserable and hates you, but kind of in the way that you know that he likes you too. And so obviously as you're building relationship stuff, it's a really fun. And then every Friday, everyone in the town goes to the town inn, and there's a Dungeons and Dragons game that carries on every week. There's sometimes there's like two of them will just be getting drunk on like expensive wine, or they'll be doing a life drawing class or something in the corner. Oh, the kids will be trying to figure out if they can break into someone's room to steal something, or it actually these moments that make it feel like you're actually helping out and like it's worth doing it because the people who you're doing it for are worth it. And in terms of there's so much customization, so much.
Do you make your own character?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things I also really like is that you can swap out anytime. You can change what you look like. You can change your name.
Cool.
You can change your clothing at any point. You get to, build furniture and put it in your house and move it around. There's different themed decors that you can have, and you can obviously farm. But and going to the mines is way more fun because there's this other layer to it that I haven't mentioned, which is the fact that Mysteria is kind of like got a bit of magic to it. There are these weird statues around, and in particular there's on the farmstead that you're given, there's this big statue of this dragon. And one night you start talking to it, and as you do more things in the town, so like collecting things and putting them in the museum, which is very Animal Crossing, or if you get your town rank up to a certain thing, he kind of recognizes that and bestows upon you certain magical powers. And these are basically like, if you're in the mines and you're like really getting through it, you can restore all your health and stamina. But then it takes a few days for that to get back up. Or, if you are really set on doing something else for the day, you don't want to water all your crops, there's a spell where it just like waters all your crops for you. So it's like these great big quality of life boosts, but it ekes them out in such a way that you're not going to overuse them. Yeah, there's so much to say about it. I really love it. At the moment, I'm in the middle to end of autumn. Obviously, it changes dramatically per season based on what crops I can grow, based on, even what people are doing and hanging out with and the things that they ask for. And I don't know, it's really, really good. And I didn't realize that the people who made it, because it's been in development for about a few years now, I think 5 years now. It's in early access. Is the people who made it created Pusheen, that cat thing.
Whoa.
Yeah. What is that thing? I don't know what that thing.
That's that little fucking
thing. If you Google Pusheen, you'll recognize it. It's like
how do you spell Pusheen?
Pusheen.
Yeah.
EEN.
You're gonna be like, oh, that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that thing. Yeah, sure. I know that thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. What, is that from a game or like what is it? Is it just is it just a character thing that they made and they just sell merch on it?
Don't know. Okay. But it's really, really good. Oh, it's a website that they made. It was called Everyday Cute, a website, and they created a character from a comic book strip, and that's what Pusheen is.
I'm glad this game is on my radar now because I was a Stardew Valley addict.
Oh, then you
and
should.
This looks good.
So
just go on. No, I was gonna say, do you think it holds any? Because I don't like those games ever. I've tried Animal Crossing, I've tried Stardew. I'd like, this is boring. I hate this. Do you think there's any appeal to this one that makes it like for people who don't like that genre in the past?
Question.
Like, is there anything new that might bring me to it?
I think I think one of the reasons I like it so much is because it fixes a lot of the things that I don't like about Stardew. And so, but at the same time, there were those things that were compelling to me in Stardew. So I think if you don't have any love for it, I don't think this is going to be the one that changes your mind. I think this is just a really good distillation of what this genre could be. It's great, and I've been playing it on ROG Ally, and it's great in handheld. Dude, hard recommend.
Right. Yeah, cool. The reviews on it are nuts. Like everyone.
Oh yeah, it's popped off. The subreddit is also very good. I'm at the stage now where the Fashion Souls moment of it all, where people are like, "This is what my second year farm looks like," and I'm like, "Oh, mine looks like shit." Thanks.
nice to see it do so well.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's cool.
It's good. It's good. I'm actually just buying it now. I don't even know if I'll play it, but I'm just gonna buy it because I don't know. It just feels like nice to support these sorts of games.
You've been influenced.
Yeah, it's just. I think it's nice to see these sorts of games do well and much respect to this sort of stuff. So, and I'll boot it up on a whim, see if anything does change because maybe I'm just at a different point in life now where actually something like this hits right. You know what I mean?
Good.
I mean, right now I'm about to start playing Space Marine, so I'm not going to have a lot of time for it right now. But in the future, then yes, I might circle back to it. And
yeah. I want to hear about Space Marines, which is from the ridiculous to the sublime, because every time Jake has like mentioned it, he's vibrating in his seat.
Totally.
Yeah, it's very good. It's to me, it's like a perfect or a near perfect video game package, like, because it feels like it's like, all right, you buy this game, you get a campaign, you get multiplayer, have fun. And I don't know, it's just like refreshing in how it's like, oh yeah, I remember like games would be like this. Like, am I going to play this forever? I don't know. Is it designed for me to play forever? I don't know.
A little bit, but
maybe they're going to work on that. But
not forever, but for a while.
Yeah. So that's the only reason I say that is I'll start up front with like my negative is that it does start to feel a little repetitive after you're like hours and hours and hours in, and that's like, campaign and then doing some of the PvE missions with friends. Like after a while, I'm like, okay, really got this down. Like stun, finisher kill, repeat. But I still think that doesn't really discount just how much fun I'm having, from the pure spectacle of it all, the excitement of it all, to the kind of Gears of War simplicity of it all, where it's like you drop in, every level is you, 2 squad mates. They can be AI controlled. They can be your friends jumping in. So it's just kind of got that flow, that formula to it that just is very like, it's just comfort food. The weapons feel really good. The gore is really good. Some of the levels and some of the stuff that goes on is absolutely massive. These worlds feel huge, but also in multiplayer, when you're doing the PvE missions with your friends, not only is that like a multiplayer mode where you have like classes you can choose and you can unlock stuff and you rank up your weapons and all this, they dump so much shit in it. But like in these modes, these actually tie back into the story mode. Like these missions reference like, okay, this is like Captain Titus is like B team going to do another thing. So you're actually playing through somewhat of a narrative. And like in these PvE multiplayer things, like buildings are exploding, statues are fucking falling down. So like there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a lot, and it's cool. But for me, it just got me into like, I'm in, man. I want to live in the Warhammer 40K world.
Don't say that, man.
No, I do.
It's like that
so
fucking
sick.
Bryan Cranston meme where like the lights go down, and he turns around, and it's like, no, that's.
But like, really, like if you got like Gothic cathedrals with like computers and robots and skulls and candles in it, are you kidding me? Those are all fucking things I like. And then like the Space Marines themselves, these Marines are like very like cool. It's definitely like this big fascist weird thing to it, a lot of ideas going on, but like I don't know, they're like big Buzz Lightyear boys. They're like big Buzz Lightyear murder boys. It's just, it goes back to what I said earlier with like a palate cleansing PS3 360 era game. This feels like one of the few games that like actually really evolved from that. Like it's like another one of those, but now it's got better graphics. It's smoother to play. There's a little bit more content offering there. So I've been really, really happy with it. At the time of recording this, I'm like 3/4 of the way through the campaign. I'm racing to wrap it up before putting out a video tomorrow. But yeah, really exploring everything else and seeing the PvE mode, especially because there is also a PvP mode, which I haven't really spent time with. But for me, I'm not as interested in that. It's the PvE mode for me, and like playing as different classes has been really fun. Just experimenting with them all and seeing what the hell their deal is. And then learning more about Warhammer. Be like, there's one that like is a bigger one, and then there's one that like can have a sword and a shield. This is fucking insane, dude. So yeah, I don't know. It's cool. Space Marine 2. It's been making me happy. It's just a good old fashioned video game.
See, I've played a couple of hours of it at this point, and it was like, I played it because I got it while I was waiting for Astro, and I was like, this is not what I want to be playing right now at all, but I'll like play it because a few of my friends previewed it and they said it was really good. like you say, it's a big, stupid Xbox 360 game. Like it's fun and it's so disposable. I don't think about it when I'm not playing it, but when I'm playing it, I'm like, yeah, this is fine. There's thousands and thousands of enemies coming towards me. You couldn't do that on the last gen. That's pretty cool. As you say, super repetitive in terms of you parry, you do a finisher, you parry, you do a finisher, then occasionally you pick up a bigger weapon and you can kind of go to town with that stuff. I think it would be great fun with two friends just to like fly through it, talk a load of shit, either pay attention to the story or don't. As you say, there's there's some weird overtones, weird kind of fashy stuff, but yeah,
that's a Warhammer though. Like that's always been that's the core conceit, and
well, obviously that's like, I wonder, as I mentioned, I think this was in the pre-show, but I mentioned this, is there people that are, is this a kind of game for the Warhammer absolute like psychopaths that they are coming in to see these great sets of armor being recreated? Like, is this that for them? Because if it is, it seems like a really great one of those.
Yes, it's definitely that for them, 100%.
Your enthusiasm, Jake, means that once all the Astro stuff is out the door, I will go back and see if it is going to kind of tickle my fancy, because I love a Gears of War. I would pay you £1,000 for a game that feels as good as Gears of War 2 in 2024. But yeah, it's a silly one.
Yeah, I haven't actually played the review code yet because I got back from Gamescom. Then I had straight into Outlaws, then straight into Astro Bot. And so the review embargo is like tonight, but I haven't even booted it up yet. But I played like 10 hours on preview builds and whatever, and I just loved every second of it. I mean, I'm a Warhammer enjoyer, but I wouldn't call myself a Warhammer fan in the sense that like that's a thing. But like, yeah, exactly. Because to say you're a Warhammer fan is a whole thing. Because you get deep in the lore and you fucking paint figures and you've played every game and you know the names of things. And I don't know the names of any things, but I have like played some games and read some books and always enjoyed what I've touched of it. And this just feels like, one of the best touch points ever. Like from all the experiences that I've had, it's hard to imagine how you could better deliver this kind of Space Marine power fantasy. It's a really interesting contrast to Darktide, which I think is a much deeper game in terms of its core gameplay loop, right? That, I don't know, did anyone play Darktide? No?
Played a bit of it.
Only a little bit.
I liked it, but it made me so motion sick. Oh.
Sure. Darktide is mechanically unbelievable. It's such a great video game, and just like it would be endlessly replayable if the surrounding progression systems supported that, because it just feels so good to play, and the immersion and all of it, amazing, right? And this is far simpler than that, and I can definitely see that commentary about like, oh, it's repetitive with the parry, and yes, I can see how you get to that point with this. But yeah, I mean, like I'm imagining that I'm going to play this for 15 to 40 hours, just play the campaign, unlock all the shit in the PvE co-op stuff, done. But in the future, though, there is going to be extra content because they're working on like a roadmap with extra, and that is going to be really interesting because if they, and this is coming back to our conversation from before, okay, about live services. Live services should not be, hello, we are here to announce a new live service video game. Please allow us to make it for 5 years, and then we will drop this live service video game on you, and you will want to play it forever. No, that's not how this should work. It should be like, okay, we're making a video game. We've made the video game. Turns out you guys like it. We can make some more of it. So let's do that. And then you make some more of it, right? And then that's it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand all the reasons why that can't happen in the realities of game making and budgeting and teams and all that sort of shit. But it should be closer to that than what we're at this point, right? And that's kind of the model that Space Marine is going with. It's not positioning itself as a live service. It's a game that's going to deploy, and then there it is, and they're going to make a little bit of extra content on their roadmap or whatever else, but they're not promising that this is going to be a forever game, right? But if we keep playing it and we like it and we want more of it, then they can keep making more stuff. Like, that's the dream, right? You put something out to market, and when you've established demand, then you make more content to meet that demand. You don't anticipate the demand before you release the thing. Do you know what I mean? So all of this is a long way of saying I hope this game has a long life ahead of it. But I love the fact that it's not launching itself as a live service. It's just launching itself as a complete offering, and that is really cool, you know?
I agree.
So yeah, man, Space Marine, I'm really keen for it. That's next on the docket for me. Should be cool. Should be cool. You know what else I played, by the way?
Oh yeah,
we can talk about this actually. Yeah, I do. Actually, Zelda. Echoes of Wisdom.
Oh, good.
What?
We can talk about that.
I did
Because
that
it's past embargo when we talk. It's like Wednesday embargo. Got invited to Nintendo, or to an event hosted by Nintendo in a hotel room in Sydney, and played 90 minutes of Echoes of Wisdom. Mm-hmm. It is delightful. I loved what I played of it. If anyone hasn't seen it, it is a Zelda game where you play as Zelda as opposed to Link, and Zelda can. She basically has to. She has like a little magic wand thing that can recreate items. It's essentially a puzzle game. Don't think of this as a sword and shield game. Think of it as I need to climb up to that ledge, so I'm going to copy a desk with my magic wand, and then I'm going to cast a spell that stacks 3 desks on top of each other, and now I can reach that spot. It's very simplified, but that's ultimately what it is. But it is wonderful. I really loved what I played of it. It's that same art style as Link's Awakening. The puzzles were all fairly simple, but were enjoyable. It's just oozing tons of charm. It's just a lovely experience.
How's the music? Are they doing like original stuff here, or?
You know what? I think I didn't notice it as I played it. I'll put it that way, right? I'm not sure. But there are some surprises in there in terms of the story it's trying to tell, which is nice, and some cool power-ups that I think are going to impress people.
Gun?
No, Jake. There is no gun.
They did not give Princess Zelda a gun.
Maybe later on. Who knows? But yeah, really enjoyed what I played of it, and very interested to see more. My one downside, though, it ran like shit.
On a Nintendo Switch? I can't believe it.
I didn't actually. I noticed a little bit of stuttering.
But like, it should. But like, this game. If you look at this game, it does not look like a game that should push this system. Absolutely not. This system can run Tears of the Kingdom fairly well. This game is nowhere near as demanding as that graphically, but it does not run well, you know, and I was really disappointed about that. But look, at this point, we just accept that that's how it is on the Switch. It is what it is. There's going to be a re-release remaster of it at some point when the Switch 2 comes out, so you can probably wait to play it on that if you like. But yeah, really great. I loved it, and I'm really excited for the full release later this month. What did you think, Liz?
No, I'm the same boat. Me, not a Zelda person. I had a delightful time with it. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed was that talking about it with other people afterwards to see how they did stuff, because one of the first things you get is a bed, and so I was like, well, how much can I push this? Like, what can I use the bed for? And then later I was talking to someone else who was like, oh, well, you can set the bed on fire. I was like, no, I did not know you could do that. And I was playing with Tam, and also Ben Starr came to our appointment too.
He's everywhere, man. He's absolutely everywhere.
He really is.
But Tam was playing it, and there's like a spidery creature that you could get.
Yeah, I like that one.
And like Tam found so many uses for that spidery creature. It was a point where we were facing off against a boss, and Tam was like, do you think I could do this? Well, we were getting kicked out of the appointment because we'd overran at that point. But I feel like he could have probably done it. I think it's one of those games where, you know how my current favorite thing is, can I beat Spyro without gliding? Like in 3 years' time,
Yes,
there will be a video which is like, can I beat
Echoes of Wisdom with beds on fire?
Yes, exactly. Like, and I'm very excited to see what people do to come up with it. And like, yeah, it was one of those things where, like with Astro Bot, I was playing it and I was just thinking to myself, oh, this is just bloody delightful. I don't know why I sounded like a massive Tory when I said that. Just really, really pleasant. Goodbye.
Yeah, no, it does have that kind of energy, just pleasant and surprising and joyful and fun and playful. It just seems very playful and really encouraging experimentation and just classic Nintendo, man. Like they're not out there trying to do the whole AAA thing. They're just like, you know what would be fun and quirky? This thing. And you're like, oh yeah, let's green light that and make that game, and they do it, and I love it. It's great. So
good shit.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Good shit.
Next up, speaking of good shit, we're moving on to show and tell. This is a sequence where we talk about something that isn't a video game, something else we've been enjoying. So Jordan, I want to put you on the spot. Have you been enjoying anything other than video games?
I have. I've been watching Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime.
Jesus Christ.
We've got an anime boy. We've got an anime boy in our podcast finally.
We certainly do not.
What are you talking about? I have an anime podcast, Ralph.
You don't watch anime? Why don't you ever talk to us about it? You're the only person who watches anime who doesn't constantly talk about anime. What the fuck, man?
I'm a different breed. I'm built different.
This is okay. You just watch JoJo though. That's the one thing you watch. Do you watch any of the exactly?
Watching
That's not.
Delicious in Dungeon at the moment. Dungeon Meshing.
I
Which is
don't know
great.
what that is.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, Jordan. Go on. Continue. We
No,
interrupted you.
I love the anti-Lucy rhetoric. So
Flies on.
my partner Laura is a massive anime head. She has watched it all, and I've been staunchly anti-anime for most of my life, but she got me hooked with Attack on Titan, which is the greatest story ever told.
It's pretty good.
After that, I was like, I don't need to watch any more anime because this is peak. Like, this is not just peak anime; it's peak filmmaking. And then we tried bits and pieces of a few others. Chainsaw Man didn't really work for me. Demon Slayer. And I've seen like 3 Demon Slayer films at this point. No fucking idea what's going on at any point in any of them. I'm just like, as long as you're having fun.
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood?
No,
I think you would vibe with that.
That's part of the list, because every time I'm on a trip, I obviously have to bring back a present, and Full Metal Alchemist is one of the approved brands that the present can be from. So we started Jujutsu Kaisen, and the first couple of episodes I was like, I wasn't tired, but I was straight falling asleep, and I was feeling so bad because it's like, I want to try and get into this. And whatever it was, after a few episodes, I was like, okay, I got into that cycle of let's fire all of them on. We watched basically the whole first season in a couple of days, and it's not Attack on Titan. Nothing's Attack on Titan, my dearly beloved. But the characters are fun. It is really kind of video gamey in the set. It reminds me of Persona a lot, in the sense that it's a thing set in a school, and they all have special moves, and they say their special moves when they do them, and it's like little RPG parties going off to like clear dungeons. Love all that stuff. And it has banger music, which anime excels in. So yeah, that's my Jujutsu Kaisen has been my non-gaming stuff. There's a bit of a lull now. Like, I don't think I'm reviewing a big game until the end of this month, so maybe more anime. Maybe
more anime reviews from Jordan Middler.
Some reading.
You know what would improve your life? More anime. That's always the answer.
Hey, I got one. The Terminator anime, Terminator Zero on Netflix.
I need to watch that.
It's pretty good. It's a good time. To me, I know it's not like a high bar, but I'm like, damn, I haven't watched anything good Terminator in a long time. I think since Sarah Connor Chronicles, and that was like over a decade ago, right?
I've never seen a Terminator. I've never seen any Terminator movie.
What?
What the hell? That's weird, man. That's super weird.
I hate films. I really hate
yeah, no, I forgot this
Jesus
about
Christ.
you. I forgot this about you.
This man watches anime but hates films. Okay.
No, so there's a footballer in the UK.
Explain your friend, Lucy.
No, there's a footballer in the UK. Shit, what's his name? I can see his face.
Michael Owen.
Michael Owen, who's like famous things that he would just tweet out that he hates films. And so like, I think like someone asked him once for a list of films that he'd seen. And one of them, I think, was, what was it? With the Jamaican bobsled team.
Cool Runnings. Yeah, that was a sick movie. I love that.
It was.
But he tweets out, like, every time he watches a film, he just tweets out, like, #hates films.
One of his tweets was, watched my eighth other film on a flight home. Must have been bored. #hate films. That's very
what a
much
weirdo, man.
That's very much my opinion. I have a film degree from a really, really shit Scottish university, but that broke me to the point where asking me to sit down and watch a film is like asking me to go to the dentist. It's like, I just don't want to be part of this whatsoever.
Fuck, man. What is this origin story? Jesus Christ.
This is the lore I didn't want to tell you guys when I was like, hey, we should get Jordan on.
You should have led with that.
They're so boring, man. They just go
What are you
on
on about?
They just go
Who
on.
are you? We did not properly vet this guest, okay?
Sorry.
Seriously.
Every time I'm watching a film, I'm like, I wish this theater would explode. Like, I wish I was doing anything else.
Okay,
apart from
FBI, he was
watching a
joking. He was joking, please. He was joking. I don't know, what is it? MI6
films.
over there? What is it over there for you people?
The thing is that the fucking Terminator 1 and 2, Terminator 2 is the greatest action movie of all time.
Yeah,
it is.
but this one is Terminator 1 focused.
Oh,
so
God.
it's better. It's a little more bleak.
horror?
It's a little more grim.
Yeah.
And it just feels really well made. Again, I am not like massive anime enjoyer, and like I don't understand too many nuances with like the creation or the art style or the visual motifs, but like as a very casual anime person who just likes like Attack on Titan or like Big O or like random movies or the edge runners. Like, I think if you like edge runners and you're not like super into this stuff, this is another good one. It essentially tells a story, a Terminator like story, time travel, the threat of Judgment Day, but in a way that's familiar but not feeling like a cynical rehash. It's taking place concurrent, like while everything else is going on, but in Japan. So you get to see a little bit of like what's going on there and how it kind of tackles, Japan being different, Japan having different technology in this world. It kind of runs with it, and it's pretty cool. The Terminator stuff is also very good. Just the way they utilize a Terminator infiltrating, going through this world, is creative, because I think that's pretty challenging. It's like big guy who doesn't talk. He walks around and shoots people. Sometimes it's a little hard to make that interesting, but I think they've done a really good job. There's also a woman that is kind of like the Kyle Reese of this story, and she's really cool. I'm just into it. It's just like a really good thing. I don't know if it's just like I'm just thirsting for something Terminator good.
I've heard it's good.
I've heard it's good. No, and also like the studio behind it, production IG is.
Oh, is it them? Is it?
Yes.
Oh, well, obviously. Okay, cool.
You mean the creators of Mass Effect Paragon Lost?
Absolutely. That was my first thought.
Yeah, of course.
The showrunner for this Terminator anime was asked like his favorite Terminator movie or whatever, and he said Salvation. And I was like, you know what? That rules. Because
that was the last good
unironically
one.
believe that was a great film that everyone unfairly shits on, and I'm like, why? It's a good film. Like, why are we hating on this film? It doesn't make any sense.
That's the
It was
Christian Bale one.
Christian
Oh,
Bale.
good for
you. Good for you.
So no, I respect him for his. So
you should definitely watch it, because it does a lot of like some of the more creative aspects of Salvation. It does here, kind of familiar, but it was actually cool to see as a Salvation enjoyer. I was like, oh, yeah, they definitely watch Salvation.
Nice.
So yeah, highly recommend.
What's McG up to these days?
It's a good question.
G?
McG, the director of Terminator Salvation.
Oh, right. Okay.
Do you guys remember the iPhone game for Terminator Salvation? That was sick as hell. You got to shoot like T-800s and stuff. No, anyway.
No memory. On a similar note, I rewatched the entire Alien filmography while I was on the plane.
Yes.
Gamescom, back and forward, because I watched. This was when we were deep in Romulus discourse.
Oh, I can
Romulus.
chime in on as
Yes.
the tiebreaker on Romulus.
Okay, sure. Yes, unfortunately, Romulus is a very well-made film that happens to suck. Okay, that is my take on Romulus.
I thought it was good junk
No,
food.
now we're feeding the film hater with. He's got talking points now.
That's right.
I've seen the first Alien, and I wrote a 7,000 word essay on it.
That was actually the last movie he saw.
Back and forward, and no interest in seeing the rest of them. Don't give a shit.
Right. But Romulus, yes, very well made. Unfortunately, just very uninteresting and soulless, and oh my god, the AI, the deepfake AI shit in there.
I did not like that.
Is unbelievably bad. And the line that he says at the bottom of the elevator, which I won't spoil.
Oh Jesus!
But you can guess what it is.
Oh my god, I died when they.
I don't get what they were doing with that delivery, like what they were trying to do.
All of it was just so annoying. So anyway, but watched old Alien movies. Obviously, Resurrection still the worst, terrible, right? Unbelievably bad. I've always had a soft spot for 3. I think it goes way harder than people give it credit for. 2, obviously, fantastic, but like I still prefer the horror vibes thing over the action thing for sure. 1, clearly masterpiece. Nothing you can say about it other than that. Covenant,
Jordan,
Prometheus
love
and Covenant, though.
Let's go.
Prometheus, I've always enjoyed for its sci-fi, like its proper sci-fi vibes, where it's like, well, let's really think about what this is, and let's do some cool storytelling and world-building shit. And Covenant, I also enjoyed for the same reason, but it was definitely much scrappier and weirder and it was odd, right? Prometheus really felt very deliberate, and then Covenant felt like they were trying to appease people who didn't like Prometheus.
It was like a backpedal, but still letting Ridley Scott kind of do his own thing.
Correct. And it didn't quite work for that reason as well. But I still, watching Prometheus again, I was like, this is a great film, way better than I remember, in fact, and I liked it at the beginning. And I think all of the Prometheus hate is wrong, and I will definitely die on that hill, 100%.
I knew I liked you.
Yeah,
excellent.
Well, I have my moments. So
I'm waiting for that we need to do like the hashtag complete the David trilogy. There could be a trilogy there, dude.
I would love it. I'd be so happy if they did it. I mean, it'll never happen, sadly, because Romulus has made like $1 kajillion now, and so they're just gonna have to make a sequel, unfortunately.
Did you guys watch the trailer for the guy who made Fargo is making the Alien series? It's coming to FX.
Oh, that's right. I
trailer
heard about
dropped
that
today.
Noah
Hawley?
I don't know.
Is that his name? He made
but
Fargo.
I'm into that. I'll check
the
it
TV
out
show.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, have you watched like Rings of Power? By the way, is it
I can
bad?
finally talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, you can talk about Rings of Power. Is it
no,
bad?
I've seen the first 3. No, it's much better.
That doesn't sound like very much praise. That's damn
so-
sure faint praise. It's much better than total dog shit, or it's good.
So I rewatched season 1 because context for this is that I interviewed the cast at Comic-Con. And so I had screeners for the first 3, and I watched them, and I was like, I'm a bit warmer on season 1. Season 2 starts really strong. I think they're a lot more assured of what they're doing. The one thing I will say is that Sauron's wig is an absolute atrocity. It is dreadful. I don't know what they're doing there. But I did really enjoy the first 3 episodes. One thing I was going to say about Rings of Power.
I want to know about the orc discourse. People are mad that now the orcs can have families and they love each other or whatever. Is that okay? I don't know I need to be told what to think.
Yeah.
Life is too short for me to get. Wait, Ralph, is that why you asked me about?
That's
orcs?
why I asked about that, because there was all the discourse about people that like repositioning orcs as loving fathers and like who just want to stay at home and raise their kids as opposed
fuck
to
now.
No.
Did you see that meme?
now. And I'm just like, oh man, I don't know.
I'd forgotten about that, to be honest, because it was it's been a couple months since I watched it. But no, I will reserve judgment on the whole thing until I've finished it, but I think overall it starts off much stronger. I don't understand why they did the Sauron thing the way that they did in the first season. I think they probably could have lost that. Spoilers, but it was bad, man.
Did they put like Celebrimbor in this one? Like in season 2?
He's in season 1. No, he's in season 1.
Okay. I didn't finish it.
He's in there. Yeah, so now we're at the point where... So in season 1, they had this guy named Halbrand who was a mysterious but hot man. And then at the end, it turns out he's Sauron. And then, Sauron at this point is like the Lord of Gifts and, convincing everyone to forge the rings for him. And I don't understand. I don't think it was as impactful as maybe they hoped it would be. But I think season 2 is off to a stronger start. Thank you for reminding me about Rings of Power. Because I was going to say the thing that I've enjoyed this week was I went to Seattle for PAX. And I had an actual day in Seattle. And so I went to the Museum of Pop Culture, which was awesome. They had...
Give me an example of what they have in a museum of pop culture.
Guns?
Are we talking like...
Well, speaking of Alien, they had a bunch of original props from Alien. They had
Cool.
a bunch of stuff from Star Trek. They had a Nirvana exhibit, because obviously Seattle local.
Okay.
They had a fantasy exhibit and a sci-fi. In the sci-fi one, they had Number 6's dress from Battlestar Galactica. They had a bunch of stuff from Star Wars. They had, who's that? Is it Greedo? That green freak? They had like
Greedo,
his mask and stuff, and like Luke's lightsaber, and also the prosthetic hand that he loses.
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
like
That's
it's
kind of cool.
It's sick. When you go in, they have the Blade Runner. I mean, first of all, they have the Blade Runner. They have the see-through coat and everything. They have his gun, but they also have one of the police cars just hanging in the ceiling when you go in.
Damn.
An Ender Dragon from Minecraft. They had a video game exhibit. And it was really funny because I was with a couple of like game devs, and there are these signs where it's like, what is a video game? How are video games doing? Like, how is a game made? So we had a lot of funny photo ops where they're all just standing there, like staring at these exhibits. But no, it was really cool. And like they also had like this wild one where it was like, what is pop culture? And then there was TikTok dances, and not to say that that's not part of culture, but it seems so weird to see something that was as recent as 18 months ago be in a museum already. And it was cool. Oh, and they had a bunch of stuff from The Lord of the Rings. They had Saruman's staff. They had Sting. And I had a really dumb moment where I was with a friend of mine. I was like, who's this Paul Allen guy? And why has he donated all this stuff? And we Googled him. Hey, stop fighting down there. We Googled him, and Paul Allen is the co-founder of Microsoft. So, yeah.
As you do.
Did they have any Muppets?
They had Robin. And they had a bunch of stuff from the Dark Crystal in the fantasy exhibit.
Nightmare fuel.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about that. I get upset.
I went to the Museum of the Moving Image, I think is what it's called.
Sounds right.
In New York, when they had the Jim Henson exhibit, and they had like original Kermits and original Gonzos, and it was like,
That's cool.
You can feel the power in this room. The Muppets movie, great film. And both of them are okay. Second one's a bit weaker.
The first one.
I like the Christmas one. Christmas
Carol.
banger.
The Haunted Mansion thing they did on Disney Plus recently is like one of the only good Disney things that has happened in the last 500 years. So I would.
Isn't Jeff Keighley in that?
He might be.
I think that's the thing he's in.
He's got an acting credit.
I mean,
It's
honestly,
like him in the Muppets movie and Bobby Kotick in Moneyball. Like, you know.
Isn't Donald Mustard in the latest Matrix movie?
He is he?
Because
there's
you
like
can
a
see
Game
a Game
Awards thing.
Award, and then they did that Matrix tie-in thing.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Donald Mustard. What a great
I forgot about that movie.
Yeah. All right.
Wow.
Well,
that was a
show.
stacked episode.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. Jordan, I would like to know where the people can find you, what you're working on, what you're cooking on.
You can find me in Paisley walking around. I am at Jordan Middler on X. But
don't call it that.
You can't type out.
You are not allowed to
anymore.
appear on this platform and call it that.
X gonna give it to me.
No. Again, apologies. We need to vet.
When you
that
say
out in
X gonna
future.
give it to you, then I go, oh, you know what? Absolved. That's fine.
God rest him. He's up there. Yeah, Video Games Chronicle, VGC. Check out the website. It's where all the news is. That's the subhead. It's where all the news is. We have a podcast, the biggest gaming podcast in the UK. I was about to say don't look that up, but you actually can because it's currently true. It probably won't be at one point when I say something horribly libelous, but it's currently true. And patreon.com/Video Games Chronicle to pay for my inevitable open heart surgery due to all the energy drinks. But thank you all for having me on. It's currently 20 to 4 in the morning.
I know.
So
I'm
Jesus
sorry.
Christ, man.
I'm
That's
feeling
so
Love
wild.
you.
I'm feeling sexy and free, as Jessie J once sang. It's been a hell of a night.
You did great. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you.
Love to have you on again. You're
Bad
always
time
welcome.
zone, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't
For sure.
We'll figure it out.
sure.
He's got enough energy drinks. He'll be all right.
He's fine. He's fine.
My night's just starting.
folks, thank you very much for listening. You can rate us on the podcast platforms. We really help. That we would really appreciate that. That does help. So thank you. Clicking the like button on the YouTube video also helps. Leaving a nice comment on the YouTube video. I mean, maybe consider being nice.
Helps us. Helps our mental health. It's nice.
Yeah, but either way, we're just thank you. You're here, whether you're lurking, whether you're commenting. Thank you. Of course, check out our Substack. The Substack is awesome. Like I said, I'm biased, but it is friendspersecond.substack.com. Thank you guys very much for listening. Tie your shoes and go to bed.